Chapter 473. Mei Shuiyan waited for a while. Seeing that there was still no movement, she suddenly sneered and waved her hand. A strong gust of wind silently rolled out. Beside her, there were several towering trees. Any one of them was as thick as a few people hugging their arms around it. But under her palm, they silently trembled for a while, and then with a swoosh, they became wilted. First, it started from the roots, then the trunks. The lower parts of the trees had already turned into a pile of powder. Then, the upper parts continued to fall, turning into powder. Finally, the huge canopy of the trees also began to shrink and fall. In the dense mountain forest, the 8 large trees suddenly disappeared. On the ground, there were only 8 piles of fine powder. They were like grayish-white piles of ash that quietly stayed there. Each pile of ash was a standard cone shape and was around 10 feet tall. During this process, not a single sound was emitted. It was as if these 8 trees had never existed in this forest. As for these 8 piles of ash, they had been there since ancient times, and had never changed. June Moxie sucked in a breath of cold air. What kind of skill is this? With a wave of her hand, the world has turned into mulberry fields. This Mei Shuiyan's strength had actually reached such a terrifying level. Mei Shuiyan's snow-white robes fluttered gently as she spoke indifferently. June Moxie, you still don't plan to come out? Do you see? Who in your June family can match up to my strength? I will count to 3. If you still can't hold on, I will immediately go to Tianxiang City and kill June Zhantian and June Wui. I know you. You once said that you don't want to be threatened. But this time, I will threaten you. Even if your mysterious master is a match for me, can he protect your family for a lifetime? Will he be able to protect everyone under my command? Her eyes were still looking at the sky indifferently. Her red lips moved slightly as she softly said, 1. But at this time, June Moxie was completely shocked. How did she know that I'm the one lying in ambush here? And how did she say it so confidently? When Mei Shuiyan said his name, June Moxie was really nervous. Just as Mei Shuiyan had said, with her skills, if she wanted to kill someone, even the 8 great masters couldn't stop her. As he hesitated, he heard Mei Shuiyan say, 2. Her beautiful face was slightly raised, and she was still looking at the sky, like an innocent little girl who was counting the stars. However, the decisiveness of these 2 numbers was exceptionally resolute and decisive. Looks like you really don't want to come out. Mei Shuiyan sighed softly. That's good too. I'm going to kill June Zhantian and June Wui right now. I hope you can stop me in time. By the way, do you have the ability to stop me? Hurry up and ask your master for help. I hope he can make it in time. As she said this, she stood up lightly, her face full of killing intent, and the surrounding temperature seemed to suddenly drop. Then, her body flashed, and her graceful body condensed into a white line in the air. In an instant, she had already moved 200 feet. That direction was the direction to Tianxiang City. Suddenly. Wait! June Moxie finally spoke from behind her. Mei Shuiyan stood still and slowly turned around. She saw a young man in white standing tall and straight at the place where she had been sitting. The way he looked at her was cold and merciless, sharp and decisive. It's really you. It's really you. Mei Shuiyan smiled coldly, and gently tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear, and slowly walked back. How are you so sure that it's me? I'm confident that my sect's secret technique is flawless, and no one in this world can break it. June Moxie had already revealed himself. So, he didn't need to hide anymore. So, he simply and gracefully sat down where Mei Shuiyan had been sitting. He grinned and said with a smile, it's still warm here. My butt feels very comfortable. It's very comfortable. Mei Shuiyan's frosty eyes glared fiercely at him. There was a trace of embarrassment in the depths of her eyes. Then, she lightly said, you told me yourself. I told you myself. June Moxie was somewhat baffled. Your secret technique is undoubtedly extraordinary. It's just as you said. I'm afraid that no one in this world can break it. But, it's the uniqueness of this technique that tells me. I had carefully observed your movements when you were fighting Xiao Buyu that day. Everyone knows that your movements are ingenious and ever-changing. So, no one can tell where you are. You can appear to the left, then to the right, then to the front, then to the back. But, I can see that many of your movements are beyond the scope of a normal movement technique. That's because your body is in a special state every time you disappear. In fact, it's tantamount to you disappearing completely. And, you're not hiding. Or, you're disappearing at an extraordinary speed. I'm sure of this. She smiled faintly, and, even I can't follow the Snake King with all my strength. That's because her innate talent is a gift from the heavens, and there's absolutely no one who can track her without leaving any traces. But the truth is, Green Hunter has been chased all the way here by someone, and that person has not left any traces at all. Looking at the world now, other than this mysterious ability of your sect, I really can't think of anyone else in this world who can do it. So, I was sure that it was you when the Snake King said that he was being followed. But, he couldn't find the person who was following him. Because, your master wouldn't be so bored. Mei Xueyan looked at Jun Moxie indifferently, and, it turns out that my guess was right. You've guessed that it was me. But, you still want to threaten me? Do you know that your words have touched my bottom line? Up until now, everyone who has touched my bottom line has paid the heaviest price. No one is an exception. Jun Moxie was very depressed. So, he didn't speak in a good mood. That wasn't a threat. I was just stating a very likely fact. Because if you really don't come out, I will definitely kill the two people I'm talking about. Mei Xueyan said lightly, I won't joke around with you. I don't need to threaten you to kill two people. So, it's not a big deal. Are you forcing me? Jun Moxie's eyes shot out sharply. He looked at Mei Xueyan coldly and said word by word, forcing me to go against you. Do you think you can afford to play with me? Mei Xueyan laughed and looked at Jun Moxie condescendingly. She waved her sleeves and floated over like a floating cloud. Her eyes were cold and disdainful, going against me. I really don't understand where you get such strong confidence. Just because of that illusory master of yours? Jun Moxie looked at this beautiful face that could make any man's heart flutter. He didn't have the slightest bit of tenderness for the fairer sex. He said slowly, a real man lives in this world. He relies on his own strength. He can't rely on any external power. But, Mei Xueyan, do you think that because you're a woman, you're good at martial arts and have peerless beauty, I won't kill you? Or, do you think that I won't kill women? So what? Mei Xueyan tilted her head slightly. The setting sun shone on her snow-white cheeks. It was almost translucent. She gave off an unreal feeling. Men and women, to me, are nothing but a bag of skin. No matter how beautiful you are, you'll be a pile of bones after you die. I have no interest in a pile of bones. Jun Moxie's body emitted an evil aura. His eyes slowly became as sharp as a sword. He looked at Mei Xueyan aggressively and said word by word, so, woman, no matter who you are, no matter what kind of resources you have, you must remember, never, ever, ever try to touch my bottom line. Or else, you'll regret it. You'll have to pay a price that you can't afford. Do you believe me? Now, is it your turn to threaten me? Mei Xueyan looked up at the sky. There was no fear or anger in her eyes. She asked slowly. She even felt that it was funny. Jun Moxie, who was as weak as an ant in her eyes, was actually threatening her. Threaten? I don't think I was threatening you just now. I was just stating a fact that is very likely to happen. Besides, so what if I am threatening you? Jun Moxie laughed coldly, why? Are you like me? Don't you accept threats? Without batting an eyelid, June Moxie counterattacked. It was the same threat. However, when Mei Shuyan threatened June Moxie felt angry. When it was June Moxie who threatened Mei Shuyan felt humiliated. The disparity in status did not allow June Moxie to threaten her. Just as June Moxie finished his sentence, he saw a white shadow flashed in front of him. A palm came slapping towards him. When it was about to reach his cheek, there was a swoosh sound in the air. Swoosh. It was too late to dodge. He didn't expect Mei Shuyan to be so fast. June Moxie's eyes were cold. He didn't dodge. Instead, he flipped his palm and slapped towards the one and only beauty in the world. Merciless. Swoosh. Mei Shuyan's body leaned back, and June Moxie's palm passed over her cheek with a schwa sound. But because of this, June Moxie also dodged her attack. Both of their bodies moved in the same motion, leaning back and kicking out. Mei Shuyan's leg was like lightning. It was aimed at June Moxie's knee. June Moxie's right leg kicked out as well. But the target was Mei Shuyan's dantian. At the same time, Mei Shuyan's right hand moved in a circle. Her fingers formed a hook and she clawed at June Moxie's eyes. June Moxie's palm was like an eagle's claw. He clawed downwards. His target was Mei Shuyan's throat. These two experts unexpectedly used the same method of hand-to-hand combat to vent the anger that had accumulated in their hearts to the extreme. They were entangled with each other with equal harshness. June Moxie didn't have a choice. His xian qi and spiritual power were both inferior to this unfathomable woman's by more than a level. So he could only use this method. However, Mei Shuyan actually gave up on the advantages and used the disadvantages. It was somewhat thought-provoking. No matter what, in this kind of close combat, women were always at a disadvantage. Bang! Their bodies flew back at the same time. June Moxie took a step back and staggered. Mei Shuyan's phoenix eyes were cold. Her pretty face was pale with anger. June Moxie, you are so cruel. I'm ashamed. It's been 2 days. The injured part of my leg hurts like needles. I thought it was better after 1.5 years. I didn't expect the temperature to drop sharply these days. Plus, I didn't pay attention to it. So I almost had a big accident. I went to the hospital today. The preliminary diagnosis is that I caught a cold, which caused the disease. It's not a big problem. Tomorrow, I'll go and see if I can get an injection or slowly recuperate. Speaking of which, don't look at this leg as a burden. It's really thanks to it. If it weren't for the fact that I had no income after the accident, I wouldn't have thought of writing books and I wouldn't have met everyone. I finished half of the Legend of Ling Tian on the bed. Now, Evil Prince is almost half. Hehe, Wu Shan Yunyu said last time, I really envy you. You got 2 Wanding books from a car accident. The car accident is really worth it. I told him, you're jealous. Then go and get 2 books. But he didn't say anything. Well, I'll come out first. I'll go to bed early the next day. I have to go to the hospital early tomorrow. The pain this time made me seem to return to the time when I was at my worst. I suddenly realized a truth. No matter what, I'm still the same Feng Ling. I'm still the same Feng Ling who advertised everywhere. Hehe, I reminded myself to always think of myself as the Feng Ling the world in the first book. Thank you, everyone. Today, I feel that you are more valuable and rare. Chapter 474. When the two of them exchanged blows, Mei Shuyan's attacks on June Moxie were ruthless, but they weren't fatal. Even if she had managed to hit him, he would at most be crippled and there would still be room for maneuver. However, every move of June Moxie's was fatal. In the blink of an eye, Mei Shuyan had already escaped from the gates of hell twice. In the end, she had no choice but to use her xian qi to repel June Moxie's fierce attacks. She didn't expect that this handsome young man in front of her would be able to use every single move he made. Every single move was fatal. Same here. You're not a good person either. June Moxie smiled faintly and coughed. He had only missed her, but the thrill of it had left him with a lingering fear. He had faced the fate of being crippled 3 or 4 times in a row. If he had even the slightest bit of tenderness towards the fairer sex, he was afraid that he would be lying here. Either he would be crippled, or he would be blind and live in the dark. This beautiful woman was really troublesome. I won't take advantage of you. Let's not use our Xian Qi and have a fair fight. Let's see who will emerge victorious. Mei Xuan grunted and stepped forward. Before she became a beast king, she had always been known for her dexterity. Even among the millions of Xian beasts in the Tianfa forest, there was no one who could match her dexterity. But this time, she was at a disadvantage against this young man in front of her. In the end, she had to use her full strength to repel him. To her, this was an inconceivable and extremely humiliating thing. She had to regain her dignity. She had to regain it. This was no longer a battle of pride but a battle of honor. Jun Mo Xia did not show the slightest bit of fear in the face of such an undefeatable enemy. He only chuckled lightly, and his eyes were as cold as ice, as calm as snow, and as silent as a 1,000-year-old glacier. At the same time that Mei Xueyan's figure moved, he also rushed forward without the slightest delay. Just as young Master Jun charged forward, his jet-black hair seemed to have been pulled straight and fluttered backwards, making a crisp "pa" sound. Coincidentally or not coincidentally, the 2 white figures were already entangled with each other before this crisp sound had even dissipated. The 2 white shadows were so tightly entangled that they seemed inseparable, forming a blurry mass of white. Puff! 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 Nobody knew just how many moves the 2 of them had unleashed in that instant. This kind of pure hand-to-hand combat completely depended on a person's reflexes and inherent agility. The 2 of them couldn't really be considered to be fighting a life-and-death battle. This hand-to-hand combat was probably just a way for the 2 of them to vent the depression in their hearts. Mei Xuan was depressed, very depressed, and extremely depressed. This was because Jun Moxie, a puny human who hadn't even reached the realm of Xinxian, had dared to threaten her. But, she couldn't ignore Jun Moxie's threat. Jun Moxie hadn't said it clearly, but Mei Xuan could hear that Jun Moxie was relying on the sacred fruits elixir. Therefore, Mei Xuan felt that she had suffered a loss. And, she couldn't avoid this loss. But, she felt extremely sullen. Even though she was depressed, this threat had forced her to submit because she had no other choice. However, how could Jun Moxie not be depressed? In fact, he was also very depressed. In fact, he was extremely depressed. The evil monarch had moved unhindered in his 2 lives. And, he was used to being in a superior position. Even though his strength had been low in the past, he had still been able to manipulate the great masters and the beast kings of Tianfa in the palm of his hand. So, when had he ever been threatened by others? But, this time, he had been threatened by Mei Xuan. So, he had no choice but to come out. But, Jun Moxie couldn't ignore Mei Xuan's threat. In fact, he couldn't ignore it. Because, they were his family in this life. In fact, they were the only family he had in his 2 lives. And, they were irreplaceable. Therefore, Jun Moxie felt that he had suffered a loss. And, this loss was also very sullen. But even though he was depressed, this threat forced him to submit, because he had no other choice. Apart from the fact that they had different reasons for submitting, the 2 of them were surprisingly in the same state of mind. Moreover, they were the kind of people who would eat anything. They weren't willing to suffer a loss. But, they had suffered a loss at each other's hands. So, they had no choice but to eat. If it had been someone else, they would have laughed it off. But, these 2 people were opposing each other with equal harshness. So, neither of them was willing to suffer a loss. They were evenly matched, and both of them had suffered a loss. But, they both believed that they could win. Since they were at a disadvantage in words, then they would return the favor with their fists and feet. Let's see who would be the one laughing in the end. Moreover, the two of them were bound to cooperate due to the existence of the Tian Fa's sacred fruit and the Tian Fa forest. But, the outcome of this fight would determine their positions in the future. The weight of their words. In this exchange, both of them had used all of their trump cards. Jun Moxie had a habit of going all out against his enemies. It didn't matter how weak the enemy was. As long as he could kill them in one move, he would never use a second move. It was like a lion pouncing on a rabbit. After all, killing the enemy was the best way to protect oneself. He had always practiced this golden rule. This was the greatest experience of the King of Assassins. However, Mei Shuiyan was much more tactful. And, she was able to resolve some of Jun Moxie's moves because of her tactfulness. In fact, she was able to counter Jun Moxie's moves after that. In fact, Mei Shuiyan would only be able to counter one move after several moves if the young master's moves were too closely linked. Therefore, the battle between the two men had become increasingly intense. The speed of the two white shadows was getting faster and faster as they fought. In fact, it seemed as if two tornadoes were intertwining with each other. In fact, it was impossible to tell who was who in the end. And, this had left the Snake King, who had stealthily sneaked back, gobsmacked. There were many kinds of Xian beasts in the Tian Fa forest. In fact, it could be said that there were all kinds of strange things. But, none of them could compete with Big Sister in terms of agility. Even Long Crane and I, the third Crane King, who were also known for their agility, couldn't compete with Big Sister in 100 moves. But, this brat is obviously a human being. But, he's actually on par with Big Sister. Moreover, the frequency of his attacks is faintly superior to Big Sister's. How is this possible? Is he really a human being? The more Mei Shuiyan fought, the more depressed she became. However, the depression she felt this time was different from before. This depression came from the threat of Jun Moxie's strength. This brat is too sinister. Every move he makes, every single one of his attacks are fatal. It didn't matter how I dodged or how incisive my counterattacks were. But, he was always able to find the most vulnerable parts of my body, and then counterattack. The most speechless thing was that he didn't seem to be aware that his opponent was a woman. Moreover, she was a peerless beauty. In fact, he didn't seem to care about the taboo parts of his opponent's body. He didn't care about attacking the chest, the lower abdomen, the genitals, the eyes, the throat. He didn't care about attacking the fatal parts. Each and every one of his attacks was crafty and ruthless. In fact, he would occasionally attack the non-fatal parts of his opponent's body. But, he would always attack the vital joints of her body. And, Mei Shuiyan could imagine that even a great master-level expert would feel extremely uncomfortable if he were to get hit by his attacks. Even I'm no exception to that. How can there be such a skill? Mei Shuiyan faced Jun Moxie's attacks. She suddenly had a feeling that this guy's every move had only one purpose, and that was to kill his opponent. Even the Xian beasts who didn't have a good impression of humans rarely had such a degree of ruthlessness. But, Jun Moxie just happened to have it. In terms of agility, Mei Shuiyan was confident that her innate talent in agility was much higher than Jun Moxie's. But, in the face of Jun Moxie's extremely frequent and ruthless roguish fighting style, she actually felt a little strained. This was because, even when this guy was attacking her with all his might, he was still able to protect his vital parts very well. He was like a porcupine with nowhere to bite. His attack and defense were almost flawless. It was as if he was aware of the openings of his moves, as well as the possible flaws. Before he made his move, he was already fully prepared. Once Mei Shuyan attacked these openings, the openings would instantly turn into a fatal trap. What a terrifying fighting style! What a perfect technique! Mei Shuyan had faced countless enemies in her life, but she had never seen such a ruthless person. He was extremely clear about his own strengths and weaknesses. He was even more clear about his own weaknesses. He was also able to instantly detect and attack the openings of his enemies. He was simply a monster. If she were to hit him twice, she definitely wouldn't be able to hit his vital parts. At least, she wouldn't be able to hit him where he would be heavily injured. But, during the 2 hits, he would be able to hit himself. Moreover, it would be an extremely uncomfortable spot. If she were to hit him twice, he would be able to ignore it. But, if he were to hit himself, it would definitely be fatal. At the very least, he would lose a considerable amount of fighting ability. Of course, if she were to use her own Yuan Qi, even if she were to hit Jun Moxie's toes, she would be able to use the power of pulling a hair to affect the whole body, and directly shatter his entire body into pieces. But, she had made it clear before the fight that both parties were not allowed to use Xian Qi to end this fight. With her status and fighting with such a young man, how could she go back on her words? What Mei Shuyan didn't know was that Da Xiao was also having a hard time. Jun Moxie secretly groaned. This woman's agility was too terrifying. This agility didn't refer to her movements, but to her body. Her entire body, whether it was her body or her techniques, were all extremely nimble. She was like a loach dipped in oil, slippery and slippery. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't land a solid hit on her. Sometimes, when he was 90% sure that he would land a hit, she would suddenly dodge it. As they fought, Jun Moxie's mind suddenly flashed. He took a step back and shouted, along the way to Tian Nan, "Were you the one who targeted and schemed against me at every turn?" Mei Shuyan's cold expression didn't change. Taking advantage of Da Xiao's sudden retreat, she pounced on him like a whirlwind. 19 punches, 27 palms, 13 elbows, and 36 kicks followed by a torrential downpour. Her mocking voice was accompanied by a torrential downpour. "You only reacted now. You're really too slow. Did you enjoy the feast along the way? Did you enjoy it?" Chapter 475. This young master has never said that I'm a good person, right? But, don't talk about big brother and second brother. We're all the same. Miss Mei isn't a good person. Jun Moxie smiled and asked curiously, "Dare I ask, miss, how do you address Tian Fa's Venerable Mei?" Venerable Mei. Mei Shuyan rolled her eyes and cursed in her heart. She chuckled and said, "That's my big brother. So that's how it is." Jun Moxie thought in his heart. No wonder their skills are the same. Motherfucker, this young master has suffered losses because of that world cage. So, it turns out that they're brother and sister. A pair of unlucky brother and sister. It was no wonder that Jun Moxie would think this way. After all, the Venerable Mei who had appeared in the Tian Fa forest and intimidated everyone was a man no matter how one looked at it. Whether it was his voice or his fighting skills, he was a sturdy and valiant man. On the other hand, Mei Shuyan in front of him was a woman. Moreover, she was a peerless beauty with peerless beauty. The difference between the two was like heaven and earth. Jun Moxie's imagination was very rich. But, he would never be able to imagine that this Mei Shuyan before him was the peerless beauty who had beaten his buttocks swollen. And, his buttocks had been beaten swollen by him. But, this peerless beauty was the Venerable Mei who had abused him in the Tian Fa forest battlefield. Young Master Jun, you humans have a very good saying. A straightforward person doesn't beat around the bush. This seat will speak bluntly. We're looking for you because of your master. You probably know why we're looking for you. Saying too much would make our Tian Fa seem petty. But, your master's knowledge is unfathomable. He's like a dragon that shows its head but not its tail. Mei Shuyan said calmly, so, we want to know some news about your master. Even if it's just a little bit, it's fine. Please tell us that this seat and your master have an important matter to discuss. Oh. Jun Moxie tilted his head. Of course, if it is really inconvenient for young Master Jun to say it, then forget it. Mei Xuan said with a faint smile, retreating in order to advance. The profound beasts of the Tian Fa forest would never understand the importance of the sacred fruit. Therefore, although Mei Xuan was traveling, she still chose to follow Jun Moxie. The main reason was that he was still worried about this matter. Well, this matter is very inconvenient. Thank you for your understanding, Miss Mei. Jun Moxie took advantage of the situation, and said with a mischievous smile. Mei Xuan was speechless. After a while, she said, Jun Moxie, you really aren't a gentleman. Up until now, she had already given Jun Moxie 2 comments, he really isn't a good person. Not a gentleman at all. Miss words are somewhat confusing. I've just admitted that I've never been a good person. So, it's naturally impossible for me to be a gentleman since I'm not a good person. Jun Moxie shrugged his shoulders, and said with a mischievous smile, being a good person is very easy to get hurt. But, being a gentleman is very tiring. Therefore, you can treat me as a rogue or a bully. You can also treat me as a bad guy or a devil. But, don't ever treat me as a good person or a gentleman. You'll suffer a loss if you do that, hee hee. You, what are you talking about? Don't you humans want to be good people? Don't you call yourself a gentleman? I really don't understand why you don't want to be a good person. Don't tell me that the so-called 1,000-year moral inheritance has been abandoned by you humans. Don't tell me that I don't understand the current moral standards of you humans. Mei Xuan said in a bad mood. Ever since she started her career, she had dealt with many troublesome people. But, when faced with such a lazy Jun Moxie, she couldn't do anything about it. Jun Moxie laughed heartily and said, this can't be generalized. Let me tell you a story. There were 2 people who lived with 7 or 8 other families. Among these 2 people, one of them was recognized as a rogue and a fugitive. But, the other one was recognized as a good person. This fugitive was feared and hated by everyone. As for the good person, he would go out to fetch water every morning. He would fill up all the water tanks of his neighbors. When the neighbors needed help, he would do his best. So, everyone liked him very much. With him at home, everyone felt at ease. Suddenly, one day, when the fugitive was returning from a robbery, he was in a panic and bumped into someone. He even killed the person that he knocked down. Coincidentally, the person that he ran into was another bad guy. At that time, he was about to molest a pitiful woman. Even though it was an unintentional act, it was still a great deed. So, everyone praised him, saying that he was a prodigal son who turned over a new leaf. They reported him to the authorities and set him up as a model. For a while, everyone was praising him, and everyone forgot about his past misdeeds. Mei Xuan didn't know what he meant by this. She didn't understand why he would suddenly tell a story when they were in the middle of a conversation. But, she guessed that he must have his reasons. So, she listened quietly and didn't interrupt him. Qian Sun Serpent Queen also sat quietly at the side, listening quietly. Jun Moxie smiled and continued. Another day, the person who was recognized as a good person fell seriously ill. He couldn't get out of bed in the morning. He had a bad fever. He didn't have any strength in his body. He was thirsty and wanted to drink some water. But, there wasn't any water in the water tank. He shouted, but no one was home. So, he got out of bed and went to fetch a bucket of water. But, he was too tired and had no strength. He filled his water tank and went to lie on the bed. In the afternoon, the neighbors came back. They were used to the good person fetching water for them. But, when they came home, they were tired and thirsty. But, they found that the water tank was empty. Instantly, they were furious. So, they rushed to the good person's house to denounce him. But, they found that the good person was lying on the bed drinking water. Immediately, they became angry and scolded, "Selfish bastard." So, he was pretending to be sick and slacking at home. Eating alone. So, the good person was immediately alienated by everyone. Everyone said, "After getting along with him for so long, we've all been cheated by him. Turns out, he's such a selfish person." June Moxie finally finished his story. He laughed mockingly and said, "What is a good person? What is a bad person? It's nothing more than the narrow-minded view of a bunch of fools. Just like how the common people look at officials. An official is clean, upright, and uncorrupted. But, if the common people under his rule don't have enough to eat, everyone will scold him as a bastard, an ignorant and incompetent mediocre official. As for the other official, he's like a vampire. His greed is insatiable and he's never satisfied with wealth. As an official, he wishes that the sky is as high as 9 feet. But, the common people under his rule can eat their fill and live in peace. So, everyone says that he's a great official who benefits the common people. This is the moral view of humans in modern society. June Moxie, why do I have to live in other people's view? What's the benefit of being a good person? What good results can there be? What's the harm of being a bad person? I am June Moxie, I am me. When I want to do something, the whole world says that I shouldn't do it. But, I still have to do it. I will still do it. Because I want to. When I don't want to do something, everyone says that it will be remembered for eternity. You should do it, you must do it. But, I don't want to do it. Because, I don't want to do it. My life philosophy is just that simple. There's no such thing as good or bad. There's no such thing as right or wrong. There's only one thing. June Moxie laughed loudly, 1,000 gold can't buy my willingness. Mei Shuyan was stunned. After a long time, she shook her head and sighed, "After listening to your fallacy, I really don't know if I should say that you're open-minded or stubborn. Actually, what you said isn't wrong. Maybe, this is the common problem of you humans. What you said is not completely correct. It's not only us humans. Aren't you Xian beasts the same? Everyone despises and looks down on bad people. Unknowingly, they feel that they're superior to him. So, when this bad person turns over a new leaf, everyone feels that it's not easy. A good person would always be diligent in helping others. When others were used to his help, they would feel grateful, but at the same time, they would also feel that he was stronger than them. With this kind of thinking, once a good person does something wrong or neglects something, others will criticize him 100 times harsher than usual. It's even more unforgivable. It's like pulling a god down from the altar. So, he's not even as good as us. June Moxie said calmly, "So, being a good person is really tiring. As for being a gentleman, you need to be a good person on the basis of being a good person. So, being a gentleman is even more difficult. And the so-called hero is a step further on the basis of being a good person and a gentleman. That's not tiring, it's miserable. So, I'd rather be a bad person. I'd rather be a bad person." June Moxie said quietly, "I also want to be a strong person. As for good people and bad people, I never think about it. I'm just curious. People like you who came from the Tianfa forest, why are you so obsessed with good people and bad people? Don't you all believe in the strong? Could it be that your views have changed?" Mei Shuyan was startled. That's right. The basic and biggest principle of the Tianfa forest is that the strong are respected. But, why am I so conflicted at this moment? Why am I arguing about good people and bad people? To me, good people and bad people don't make any difference. Am I still human? Could it be that when I transformed into a human, I actually accepted the moral values of humans? Young Master June is right. It seems that I'm really stubborn. Mei Shuyan laughed at herself. Maybe it's not that you're stubborn. Maybe I'm just too open-minded. June Moxie smiled indifferently. Actually, people like me are more suitable to live in the Tian Fa forest and not in the mortal world. That's not true. With your personality, no matter where you live, the first person you won't treat unfairly is yourself. And only yourself. Mei Xuan made a rare joke. Of course. This young master is best at taking advantage of others. I'll risk my life to take advantage of others. I'd rather die than be at a disadvantage. June Moxie snorted and rubbed his hands. He even brought them up to his nose and sniffed them. His face revealed a soulful smile. He twirled his fingers and smacked his lips twice. It was obvious that he was thinking about the advantage he had taken earlier. Chapter 476. You mentioned cooperation a moment ago. June Moxie mischievously smiled, but I don't know what your proposal is. He thought in his heart, your Tian Fa's beast kings have already cooperated with me. You still don't know this, silly girl. Yes. It's cooperation. Mei Xuyan's complexion became solemn. The Tian Fa forest needs to enhance its strength. We need to deal with the imminent clash with the three holy lands, and decide who's the winner. We won't be able to do so in time if we follow the normal speed of enhancement. Therefore, we must rely on external forces to enhance our strength. Mei Xuan had a dignified look in her eyes as she deeply looked at June Moxie. For example, we can use the Tian Fa's sacred fruit to refine a similar elixir. Moreover, only one elixir for each of us will be far from enough. And, we don't have this kind of elixir. But, your master can refine it. I heard that your master had once refined a divine pill that could increase one's pure cultivation by 10 years without any side effects. What we want is exactly that kind of thing. However, if it's only 10 years of cultivation, isn't it a little too little? June Moxie frowned. What you mean is that you want a kind of elixir that doesn't conflict with the Tian Fa's sacred fruit. Moreover, it can also increase your strength. Then, you can use this elixir to increase the strength of the 10 beast kings as quickly as possible. Then, you can use the elixir refined from the Tian Fa's sacred fruit to try to break through again. In other words, you want to break through 2 bottlenecks in a row in the shortest amount of time. And, you want to increase your strength by 2 levels. That's right. Smart people say smart things. That's exactly what I mean. Mei Xuyan's beautiful eyes glanced at him. She then calmly said, but, I can't find your master. So, I can only look for you. Miss Mei, I really want to tell you that your idea is very ridiculous. It's too whimsical. I believe that you should also know that your request will put us in a difficult position. My master is a genius. But, I can only tell you that I'm afraid that your plan will fail. June Moxie wrinkled his brows and said, it can be seen from the refining of the sacred fruit that refining this kind of divine pill requires luck and coincidence. Secondly, it requires a complete set of medicinal ingredients. Moreover, the medicinal ingredients involved are all top-notch spirit herbs. Thirdly, he needed a lot of time. Lastly, he needed a lot of energy. Even if all 4 conditions are met, it still depends on the will of the heavens to see if I can refine it. The success rate is really hard to control. In addition, there are no exceptions to any medicine used to increase one's cultivation. There are bound to be certain limitations. More often than not, after taking the first pill and waiting for the body to adapt to the enhancement or stimulation, the second or third pill would be useless. Otherwise, it would be like the 10 years pill. If it could be used continuously, then wouldn't one have 10,000 years of cultivation after taking 1,000 of them? Therefore, this is something that can't be done. I can only say that your original idea is too unrealistic. I think you should also understand what I'm trying to say. If you want to increase your cultivation in a short period of time, then you must refine at least 3 kinds of miraculous pills. And, each of these pills must have a formidable effect of at least 30 years. Moreover, the medicinal ingredients required for each pill can't be the slightest bit repetitive, so that you can smoothly reach the next bottleneck. The most important thing is that you can break through in one fell swoop after taking the sacred fruit. This is tantamount to saying that my master doesn't need to do anything for a long period of time. He can only refine pills for you in order to achieve this. Don't you think that you're going too far by asking for such an exorbitant price? Do you think that my master is someone who can be ordered around? I also know that this is very excessive. How could I not know what kind of existence your master is? But, we have no other way. Mei Xueyan calmly said, 3 years from now, no, it should be 2 years and 9 months from now, will be the 3 holy and 1 ferocious beasts ranking tournament. According to the current situation, whether it's Hermitage, the Great Golden City, or the Boundless Blood Sea, the Tian Fa Forest will lose without a doubt. But, this is the transcendental position that the Tian Fa Forest has maintained for 9,000 years. If it were to be lost from my big brother's hands, then the consequences would be unthinkable. We Xian beasts have always been discriminated against in this continent. We've only been able to squeeze into the 3 holy and 1 ferocious beasts ranking tournament by relying on our tyrannical strength. If we were to lose this, then the Tian Fa Forest would no longer be the Tian Fa Forest. Mei Xueyan's expression was somewhat pained and self-deprecating. But, Jun Moxie knew that a powerhouse like Mei Xueyan had revealed such an expression. It could be said that she was at the end of her rope. Jun Moxie frowned as he paced back and forth. He was inwardly hesitant. Jun Moxie naturally knew that if he were to help the Tian Fa Forest this time, then it would be tantamount to forming an eternal ally. The Xian beasts had a long lifespan. Not to mention the current Jun family, even their future generations would be able to do whatever they wanted in this continent without any misgivings. That would truly be the endless collapse of his descendants. The price was only a few pills. It was easy to say, but he could only refine one of these pills at the moment. He would need to reach the 4th or 5th level of the Hongjun Pagoda in order to refine the others. As for the pills with the 1,000 evils and 10,000 poisons fruit as the main ingredient, he would need to open the 6th level of the Hongjun Pagoda to refine them. The only result would be that all the heavenly treasures would turn into ashes if his cultivation wasn't up to that level. I only have 2 years and 9 months. Can I really break through to the 6th level? However, Jun Moxie wasn't sure about this. The advancement of the Hongjun Pagoda and the art of unlocking heaven's fortune was extremely difficult. Jun Moxie was well aware of this. He had advanced by leaps and bounds in less than a year's time. He had broken through to the 3rd level like a hot knife through butter. But, this achievement was only the foundation of the first 3 levels. The higher the level, the more the requirements would be. In fact, the requirements would increase exponentially. This king knows that it's difficult for your master and disciple. But, if your master and disciple agree to cooperate with us, then we'll provide whatever ingredients you need during the process of refining the pills. Our Tian Fa Forest will provide them. It doesn't matter if it's at the bottom of the sea, on the snowy mountains, or if it's extremely hot or extremely cold. We'll give you our full support. Mei Xueyan clasped her hands behind her back. Moreover, we won't doubt your master and disciple's conditions. It doesn't matter if they're reasonable or unreasonable. Any conditions? Jun Moxie's heart skipped a beat. Any conditions? Jun Moxie's biggest dream was to be able to build his own business in the Tian Fa Forest. From then on, he would be able to roam the continent without any worries. And, the Beast King of the Tian Fa Forest. Jun Moxie really liked it. That kind of temperament was very much to Jun Dashao's liking. Even if there weren't any benefits, Jun Moxie still intended to help. What's more, there were benefits. Moreover, it was such a huge benefit. This was an irresistible temptation. Jun Moxie gritted his teeth. Motherfucker, there's no motivation without pressure. Isn't it just the 6th level of the Hongjun Pagoda? This young master was able to advance to the 3rd level in half a year. Why can't I advance to the 3rd level in 2 years? I'll risk it. It's nothing more than forcing this young master to train harder. The increase in strength would be equally beneficial to him. I personally don't think there's any problem with this. But I still need to seek my master's opinion. After all, whether it succeeds or not still depends on his wishes. But don't worry, I will try my best to facilitate this cooperation. As for the conditions, it won't be too late to talk about it later. I can't make this decision. Young lady May won't believe me even if I say that I'll agree to it, right? Jun Mo Xia rolled his eyes. He obviously wouldn't reveal his cards at this time. If he let others know that the mysterious black-robed man, the invincible expert, was him, the consequences would be unimaginable. All of his enemies would flock to him. Even if they didn't have any grudges against him, they would have the thought of destroying him in the bud. So, this was a secret that he couldn't reveal until he was strong enough to dominate the world. Not even to his closest kin. I understand. Thank you, young Master Jun. Mei Shuyan's lips moved a little as she spoke in a low voice. But, that's so-called 3 holy lands, what are they? Can Miss May dispel my doubts? Jun Moxie finally had the opportunity to ask this question. This question had been troubling Jun Dashao's heart for a long time. The people of the secular world didn't even know about the existence of the Silver Blizzard City and the Shuehan Manor. Only a few of the more powerful families could run amok in the world. The Silver Blizzard City and the Shuehan Manor were the top existences in the hearts of the Xian experts. In fact, even Jun Moxie had thought so before he had arrived at the Southern Heaven City. But, he had suddenly realized that there was always a higher mountain. And, the 3 holy lands had suddenly appeared in the world. The Tian Fa forest was widely recognized as a dangerous place. Everyone knew that. But, what were the 3 holy lands? From the sound of it, these places seemed to be on a higher level than the Silver Blizzard City. This was enough to make Jun Moxie flabbergasted. He had been thinking since then. Is there a higher level of existence than the 3 holy lands? If there is, then what level have these people reached? However, the biggest question at the moment was, why haven't there been any legends about these places? The 3 holy lands and the ferocious lands started 9,000 years ago. The entire Xian continent was thrown into chaos at that time. Of course, powerful experts emerged one after another in such an environment. The times create heroes, and the heroes create the times. Mei Shuyan smiled bitterly as she slowly explained. Chapter 477. Pillar of Heaven's Mountains. That's the tallest mountain in the Xian continent, right? The one at the southernmost point of the Xian continent? It's said that this mountain is tens of thousands of meters high, stretching for hundreds of thousands of miles, piercing straight into the blue sky, from one side of the continent to the other. According to ancient legends, this mountain is the end of the sky. Not to mention humans or animals, even eagles can't fly over it. It had always been uninhabited, and no one had ever been able to conquer it. The Pillar of Heaven's Mountains, connected to the heavens, gods and demons can't climb it. Jun Moxie naturally knew about this mountain, and he was very interested in it. On Earth, how big was the largest mountain range, the Kunlun Mountains? But this Pillar of Heaven's Mountains was actually so tall, even taller than Mount Everest, and it almost spanned across the entire planet. This was a miracle among miracles. So Jun Dashao always wanted to climb up and take a look. Yes, at that time, for some unknown reason, a part of the Pillar of Heaven's Mountains suddenly collapsed. At that time, flames shot up thousands of feet, and countless rocks flew up, flying for tens of miles. All the commoners who lived near the Pillar of Heaven's Mountains were killed or injured. Even a spirit Xian expert wouldn't be able to escape unscathed. In fact, the entire earth was trembling. In fact, many places were surging with heat that could melt gold and stone. This was a catastrophe that would affect the entire world. After the catastrophe, the Xian continent lost more than 10 million people. And after that, the side of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains suddenly collapsed by more than half. Originally, no one could climb it, and no birds could climb it. But after that, although humans still couldn't climb it, the difficulty was much lower. This part of the mountain was several miles long. However, it was also because of this that people discovered something. So the Xian continent didn't end at the Pillar of Heaven's mountains, there was another world beyond the Pillar of Heaven's mountains. Mei Shuyan's voice became heavy. June Moxie finally guessed that the story must be behind that mountain range. The catastrophe that Mei Shuyan was talking about must be a huge volcanic eruption and an earthquake. After the mountain collapsed, two strange-looking things suddenly appeared from the other side. Or, I should say, people. Mei Shuyan continued, and these two weird-looking people had a huge conflict with the elites of the Pillars of Sky mountain range. In the end, several Supreme Being experts joined forces and barely managed to kill them. However, there were a lot of them crawling over from that place. Even a supreme martial artist is unable to fight against a large number of freaks. However, if these grotesquely shaped and abnormally strong people are allowed to invade the entire continent, they will definitely cause unimaginable harm. Thus, almost all the profound practitioners in the world have gathered to the north of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains to stop them with all their might. This is the first war for seizing the heavens. Mei Shuyan let out a deep sigh. The entire continent united as one and united as an impregnable fortress. Finally, we managed to repel those freaks. However, during the battle, everyone gradually realized that those below the Great Master Realm would only be sacrificing themselves in vain when facing those freaks. Even a 4th-grade immortal Xian quasi-Great Master Realm expert wouldn't be able to harm those freaks even if he were to use his full strength against them. Thus, this battle became a battle between the top Xian practitioners. As for those whose strength had not reached the Supreme Being level, they were all sent back. There was really no need to sacrifice them in vain. It was also at that time that the Xian continent, in order to more effectively stop these outsiders, formed 4 major powers. They were Hermitage, Supreme Golden City, and Illusory Blood Sea. In addition, this was ultimately a battle that concerned the fate of the entire continent. Thus, the Xian beasts, Beast Kings, and Beast Venerables also participated in this battle. At that time, Tianfa Forest was the strongest force among the 4 forces. Thus, with Tianfa Forest as the main force, it was known as the most dangerous place in the universe. The 3 Holy Lands selected the strongest human Xian practitioners. If one of them reached the bottleneck of the Supreme Being level, they would be taken in by the 3 Holy Lands. Then, they would wait for the next war for seizing the heavens. During this period, they were not allowed to go out except to practice their Xian techniques. Because, any slack could lead to the failure of the war for seizing the heavens. And the failure of the war for seizing the heavens would lead to a catastrophe for the entire human race. Thus, the 3 Holy Lands are basically the concentration camp of the strongest in the Xian continent. Furthermore, only the truly strong can enter the 3 Holy Lands. As for our Tianfa Forest, we are after all Xian beasts. Human experts would definitely not join us. Thus, as time passed, the 3 Holy Lands became more and more prosperous. But, the Tianfa Forest had its own natural elimination rules, so it remained the same. Thus, the Tianfa Forest, which was the strongest force among the 4 forces at that time, was now on the decline. In order to better prevent the invasion of the monsters, the 3 Holy Lands chose extremely harsh environments. But, it was very beneficial to the improvement of the martial practitioners. Thus, as time passed, the 3 Holy Lands gradually faded out of the eyes of the world. Other than the occasional Xian practitioners who went down the mountains to search for the bottleneck of the Supreme Being level to enter the Holy Lands, there was basically no trace of them in the world. For thousands of years, they were gradually forgotten. But, the war for seizing the heavens never stopped. This is the origin of the 3 holy lands and 1 ferocious lands. Mei Xueyan looked at the distant sky. So, that's how it is. Jun Moxie was a little confused by what he heard, so he casually agreed. But, there was some admiration in his heart. It turned out that behind the prosperity of the secular world, there were so many people secretly protecting this continent. And, in the war on the other side, they only paid silently and sacrificed silently. Just based on this point, it was no wonder that they were called Holy Lands. That's why I'm a little surprised that your master, who has such a high level of cultivation, is still able to live a free and unfettered life. Mei Xueyan lightly rolled her eyes, and looked at Jun Moxie. Maybe it's because of my master's indifferent personality. He never shows his face in public. Jun Moxie laughed. Maybe. It's just that, in the recent 1,000 years, the 3 holy lands and 1 ferocious lands have been fighting openly and secretly. They have long forgotten their original intentions. This is also an important reason. I'm sure that many experts have been bitterly disappointed. The 3 holy lands are no longer the 3 holy lands of the past. Mei Xueyan sighed, and stared blankly for a while. Then, she continued to speak. Later, after fighting every day, everyone was exhausted. So, they proposed a decisive battle. After all, those who could come over from their side were also the best of the best. Moreover, the weather south of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains was extremely cold. It was not a place where normal people could live. So, the monsters from that side also wanted to come here. But, if they came, they would definitely harm the interests of this side. Moreover, those people were despicable and dirty, and were despised by everyone. So, no matter what, they were not allowed to come here. Later, it became a tradition to have a decisive battle every 10 years. But later, they felt that 10 years was too short. Both sides didn't have enough time to rest, so they changed it to 100 years. Then, in that war for seizing the heavens, the strength of the 3 holy lands and 1 ferocious lands rose to an unprecedented level. They actually killed all the strange races who came for the decisive battle. This greatly damaged their vitality. So, they did not come for the next 100 years. Only after 200 years did they make a comeback. But, no matter how ferocious they were all blocked by the strong people of the 3 holy lands and 1 ferocious lands. So, for a long time, things have been repeating like this. Until now, it has become a once every 500 years. Mei Xueyan sighed. The longer time dragged on, from a period of 10 years to the current 500 years. To them, there are many benefits and no harm. Because, at every moment, they want to get rid of that terrible environment. So, they are constantly working hard. But to our side, 500 years is really too long. It is so long that we can replace a few generations. It is so long that we can forget the terrible consequences. Although the 3 holy lands and 1 ferocious lands still exist, it is not the 3 holy lands and 1 ferocious lands of the past. And, from an unknown time, the people of the 3 holy lands actually started to step into the continent. Some of them even secretly controlled the royal power of the world. As time went on, the changes became more and more intense. In the recent 100 years, the struggle for power and profit had actually become the direction of the 3 holy lands' secret struggle. It is really pitiful and lamentable. Until now, I still can't understand. With the 3 holy lands' high and mighty position, why do they still need these worldly things? Mei Xueyan said with some melancholy. And the most heart-wrenching thing is that the 3 holy lands and 1 ferocious lands are actually going to start some ranking battle. Just for the sake of ranking first and last, they were actually fighting so hard. Who knew how much strength they had wasted on this kind of internal strife? It is really a pity, and the next war for seizing the heavens is also in the next few years. At that time, after 9,000 years of defending, this time is not very optimistic. I am really worried. Mei Shuyan's beautiful eyes revealed a trace of melancholy. Although we are Xian beasts and not humans, we still see ourselves as a part of the Xian continent. Since 9,000 years, the number of warriors of our Tianfa forest who have died in the war for seizing the heavens has always been the highest among the 3 holy lands and 1 ferocious lands. We have long regarded this war for seizing the heavens as our duty. Because we have already lost too much blood because of this. Although I, Mei Shuyan, look down on the humans of this continent, what we protect is this vast continent, not these filthy humans. And this responsibility of protecting the continent belongs to us, Tianfa, and we can't shirk from it. Tianfa's 10,000 years of glory cannot be lost in my hands. So we must raise our strength this time. We must make Tianfa's strength soar at all costs. If the humans are unable to resist the invasion of the strange races in the war for seizing the heavens, then let us, the Tianfa forest, use our bodies to push them back. At the very least, we will be able to perish together with our enemies. So we must participate in the war for seizing the heavens. But if we want to participate, we must continue to be in the ranks of the 3 holy lands and 1 ferocious lands. Otherwise, we won't even have the qualifications to participate in the war for seizing the heavens. Hearing this, Jun Moxie couldn't help but feel deep veneration. Jun Mo Xia had said that he wasn't a good person, and he wasn't a gentleman either. In fact, he didn't even care about being a hero. But, he still admired and exclaimed in admiration towards those who were truly heroic. Just like Yu Fei, Yu Wu Mu in the history of his previous life. And the white-robed divine monarch, Wu Hui, whom he admired in this life. Chapter 478. From what you've described, the longer this decisive battle is dragged out, the more it smells like a conspiracy. Jun Moxie seriously considered this matter for the first time, and said, previously, the time limit was extended from 10 years to 100 years. This is understandable, because in 100 years, not only can you Xian beasts survive, even the super experts of the human race have the opportunity to participate in 2, or even 3 or 4 war for seizing the heavens. But to suddenly extend to 500 years, the Xian beasts are still okay, but for us humans, it is an extremely sinister plan. Jun Moxie raised a finger. As we all know, once the cultivation of Xian Qi reaches the Earth Xian level, one can use Xian Qi to extend one's life. With the cultivation of Shen Xian, one can basically live up to 150 to 200 years old, and if one can go one step further and reach the supreme level, one can extend one's life again, but it will not exceed the limit of 350 years. This was what Jun Moxie had learned from Solitary Eagle. However, even the Solitary Falcon didn't know what was above the Great Master Realm. In fact, the experts above the supreme level also exist, and they can basically live up to 400 to 600 years old. I believe that your master's cultivation should have reached this level, and in fact, according to the records of Tianfa, the experts who can go one step further in this level can even have a longer life, but it is very rare, because the experts who can reach this level, at most 3 to 5 people in 1,000 years, that's all. Or you can say it like this, the experts who have participated in the war for seizing the heavens, if calculated in the current 500 years, most of them will not have the opportunity to participate in the next war for seizing the heavens. Because to be qualified to participate in the war for seizing the heavens, at least 1 to 200 years of cultivation, to reach such a level. But the next war for seizing the heavens is 500 years later. With the lifespan of humans, it's impossible for them to last until the next battle. No matter how talented an expert is, he or she is limited by his or her strength, and can only shine once. Therefore, regarding the war for seizing the heavens, we can only rely on the inheritance of the torch to the fullest flame. Mei Shuyan sighed deeply. After all, those who rely on mystical abilities to live for thousands of years only exist in legends and legends. Every war for seizing the heavens is a most miserable and desolate catastrophe. Every expert who participated in the war, no matter how powerful they were, would be prepared to die. They would bring their own direct disciples with them, and let their disciples watch from the sidelines, witness the savagery of the outsiders, and the sacrifice of their own masters. In this way, generation after generation, the torch fire will be passed on. Mei Shuiyan's beautiful eyes became a little misty. I was fortunate enough to be brought along by the previous generation's holy king of Tian Fa to watch the war for seizing the heavens. At that time, I was only a little 7th level. She didn't finish her sentence. Instead, she sighed deeply. The previous generations of Saint Kings of Tian Fa have stated clearly that the extension of time is a conspiracy of the outsiders. They can wait for 500 years, and are willing to wait. But we can't. Although they also need to replace the old generation, the living conditions on their side are too terrible. In accordance with the principle of eliminating the weak and leaving the strong, survival of the fittest, every generation has produced countless strong experts. But for our side of the continent, there are a lot of gaps. It's too long, and the habitual forgetfulness of humans is the greatest natural enemy of fighting spirit. If that's the case, why don't we just climb over the mountain and slaughter the outsiders? Wouldn't that be better? Jun Moxie furrowed his brows. Do you think that the countless experts of the past are fools? If this plan could work, it would have come true a long time ago. There were experts who had tried this method long ago, but those who could climb over that mountain were all experts among experts, experts among experts. In the entire continent, there are only a few dozen of them in every generation. And on the other side, there are also many experts waiting, eyeing them like tigers watching their prey. Furthermore, there are millions of the outsiders, and their residences are scattered all over the place. How can we slaughter them all in one go? If we go over rashly, I'm afraid that we will be slaughtered to the last one. The Pillar of Heaven's mountains is not only a natural moat for the outsiders, it is also a natural moat for us all. Mei Shuiyan scoffed and said, settling it once and for all is naturally a good thing, but we can't do it. Based on the current situation, it is already very difficult to maintain that we are not invaded. Not to mention attacking. Furthermore, the environment on the side of the outsiders is extremely vile. Even if humans or Xian beasts go there, it will be hard to even guarantee the basic survival conditions. There is no way we can cause a huge massacre. Jun Moxie was silent, but he was calculating in his heart. This matter was indeed difficult, and there were many difficulties that were hard to resolve. First, the 3 saints and 1 ferocious beasts had their own plans, and could not work together. Second, they did not have a strong team. If there were 300 to 500 people with the cultivation of a supreme martial artist, and they could give orders in unison, once they successfully crossed over, even if they could not annihilate them in one go, they would definitely hurt the outsiders greatly. Even if the outsiders eliminated the weak and kept the strong, it was impossible for everyone to be strong. Thinking about this, Jun Moxie could not help but think of his personal subordinates, the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer. If it was them, then, thinking about it, Jun Moxie could not help but shake his head. Right now, those people's murderous intent was enough, but their personal strength was too low. The strongest among them was only at the beginning of the Earth Xian realm, and he was afraid that they would not even be able to climb up that mountain. But if another few decades passed, he shook his head, it would be too late. A man should kill, and when he kills, he should be young. A man should make contributions, and not allow his white hair to turn black. If he waited for his hair to turn white, then even if he had made great contributions, he would already be old and frail. There is one thing that I am very curious about. Since ancient times, the Xian continent could be considered to be tolerant. Xian beasts could also be accepted by humans, so why can't they try to accept those outsiders? Since they can also be called humans, they should also have a form similar to that of a human, right? The outsiders, what is so special about them? Jun Moxie asked curiously, their strength is so strong, if we can accept them and assimilate them, why can't we? AI, you have not seen those outsiders, so you do not know how scary they are, and even more so, you do not know how dirty and disgusting they are. That is why you have such childish and ignorant thoughts. There was an indescribable expression on Mei Shuiyan's face, as if she was extremely disgusting, and even mentioning it would make her feel dirty. Oh. June Moxie asked with great interest, then what do they look like? The appearance of this tribe, how should I describe it? Their tribe's characteristic is that they are hermaphrodites, a bit like humans deformed conjoined twins. However, no matter which half of them is missing, they will not survive. This is also the biggest weakness of this tribe, which has been concluded by countless predecessors. However, there are also advantages. Because they are composed of two bodies, the meridians inside the body can achieve the effect of complementing each other. Therefore, no matter what martial arts they practice, they will be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort. They look ugly, and their behavior is even more ferocious. They have no humanity to speak of. It is not accurate to say that they do not have humanity, because they themselves are not qualified to be called humans. Mei Shuiyan frowned and said, "These conjoined humans seem to have a very strange and even strange martial art in their tribe. They can hide their traces in the shortest time, or directly turn into a tree, or melt into the water. In short, they are ever-changing, and it is very troublesome." Mei Shuiyan paused for a while. Conjoined humans? All of them are conjoined humans. June Moxie's eyes widened. He had often heard that conjoined humans were a kind of disease, but he did not expect that there was a tribe here. But why did their martial arts sound so familiar to him when he heard Mei Shuiyan's description? Their martial arts are even a bit similar to the marvelous martial arts you used before. Mei Shuiyan pondered for a long time and finally said, "What? Similar to the martial arts I used? What do you mean?" "You see clearly, I am a 7-foot-tall man, a handsome young man. How can I be related to those *T conjoined humans?" The young master June was listening with keen interest. But, he got angry when he heard Mei Shuiyan's words. "I've heard Mei Shuiyan's explanation. Those conjoined bodies are using the so-called 5 evasive arts at most. Moreover, it's the most vulgar kind. Can it be compared with this young master's unparalleled art of unlocking the heavens' fortune and the yin-yang escape? You're looking down on me too much. Young master, please don't be angry. I certainly understand what young master is saying. Although your martial arts have some slight similarities, the difference between the two of you is too great. It's like the difference between heaven and earth, and can't be mentioned in the same breath. Take my heaven and earth cage as an example. It can be said to be the greatest nemesis of their martial arts, and can kill them with a wave of my hand. Although my martial arts can restrain young Master June, but it can only imprison you for a short period of time. If it can kill young master, it's still beyond my ability. I can even judge that the reason why I can restrain young master is because young master's cultivation is shallow. If this kind of divine ability is used by your master, then my heaven and earth cage will be able to restrain young Master June, and that would be a great fortune." Mei Shuiyan said. Seeing that June Moxie was somewhat displeased, Mei Shuiyan had no choice but to flatter June Dashao. Listening to Mei Shuiyan's flattery, even with June Dashao's calm demeanor, he felt as if he was walking on air. However, this wasn't the time to be complacent. June Moxie continued to ask, "What kind of weapons do these people specialize in, and how cultured are they?" "Their race seems to only use a type of long and slender saber as their weapon. This saber has undergone thousands of years of evolution, and is quite extraordinary. When it slashes and thrusts, it's swift and fierce. Moreover, they have a habit of shouting out their catchphrase every time they strike. Because there's a huge difference in the language and culture between the two continents, it's impossible to understand what they're shouting. It's really annoying. Even if they're conjoined humans, they're still humans, right? It's just that their appearance is a little strange. Could it be?" June Moxie blinked his eyes, looking like a curious baby. He couldn't wait to grab a conjoined human and study them. Chapter 479. So, it turns out that brother and sister lived together. June Moxie suddenly thought of something. If their tribe is like this, then it's possible that their genes are like this. That's right, if they live together like this, how do they reproduce and live together? It can't be that when the male of the conjoined body finds a wife, then his conjoined sister and his wife's conjoined brother are staring at them from the side, right? That's so embarrassing. It's also against the norm. June Moxie took it for granted that the conjoined bodies of the same mother were naturally brother and sister. Mei Shuyan's face turned red. She was angry, anxious, and embarrassed. She didn't know how to answer. She fiercely glared at June Moxie a few times, then she closed her eyes and said with a resolute tone, "If they knew about the norm, perhaps our ancestors would have tried to accept them long ago. The most outrageous thing about them is that these filthy fellows don't even look for a spouse. Every conjoined body is a couple." Later on, someone from the Three Holy and One Fierce gave them a unified name, so that it wouldn't be awkward to call them mutated people. Because of their wolf-like nature, they were finally named wolf people. Mei Shuyan finally finished her introduction. Wolf people. Ronin. Ha. So, there are such shameless existences in this world. This is simply fucking. Ah. June Moxie was dumbstruck. He was flabbergasted as he blurted out. Even in his dreams, he didn't expect that such a big news would break out. What? You are also a young master of an aristocratic family. Why can't you be more refined in front of a girl? Can't you stop using those dirty words? Mei Shuyan's pretty face was deathly pale. Her beautiful eyes were wide open. She pointed at June Moxie with her finger and stood up. She almost ran away. Although the great beauty Mei had a lot of experience, she didn't expect that someone would use such a vivid and disgusting metaphor to speak. She thought of the meaning behind it, and she almost fainted from embarrassment. I have to say that the name that June Moxie had casually come up with was too appropriate. It was too vivid. It was so vivid that when anyone thought of these words, their mind would be filled with many unbearable images. Motherfucker. The anger in June Moxie's bones was aroused. His face was full of anger and disdain. He bared his fangs and brandished his claws, spittle flying everywhere. I'm the ancestor of elegance. What this young master hates the most are those despicable and shameless devils. Just a bunch of fuckers. How could they cause such a huge commotion on the Xian continent? To actually come up with some war for seizing the heavens, seizing his mother's bird. This young master is filled with righteous indignation. This young master now announces that I'll be fighting with these fellows for the rest of my life. If I can't get rid of these fuckers once and for all, this young master will walk with AD*CK. Mei Shuyan and Qian Sun Serpent Queen, the two Xian beast beauties, instantly blushed. They looked at this brat jumping up and down while spitting out vulgar words from his mouth. The two of them felt embarrassed, but at the same time, they were also a little puzzled. Isn't this a little too much? I've only mentioned a person from a different race. Why is this young master in front of me so angry? It's as if someone had dug up his ancestral grave. Look at this anger, it's not fake. It's completely coming from the bottom of his heart. How could the two of them know where the anger in June Moxie's heart came from? With their cultural heritage, they would never understand the great anger in June Moxie's heart. Although this werewolf was not the Ronin, but it had successfully aroused the hatred that had been buried deep in June Moxie's heart. Let's use this bunch of shameless fellows as an example. What's more, this bunch of fellows' Xian skills are actually similar. It's similar to the art of enduring something. This can be considered as not being able to catch the rabbit and eat the dog. In short, Jun Dashao was very angry from the bottom of his heart. Young Master Jun, are you alright? After a long while, Mei Shuyan asked with a red face and a somewhat reproachful tone. After all, Jun Dashao's venting just now was not in line with his original noble temperament. I'm fine, what could happen to me? Jun Moxie rolled his eyes and roared, "Don't worry, I'll definitely help you fulfill your request. I'll support this matter greatly. I'll definitely do my best to support you. Towards this kind of strange race devil, we must resolutely strike, cut the weeds and eliminate the roots, resolutely carry out the policy of exterminating the clan, never leaving behind any future troubles. At that time, this young master will personally go on stage and kill them all. Such filthy and shameless things are not fit to exist in this peaceful world." Jun Dashao clenched his fist and placed it in front of his chest, his eyes looking straight ahead, assuming a posture of swearing an oath, and said in a righteous manner, "As a member of the Xian continent, Jun Moxie, will of course protect my home and my country. I will not shirk my duty, even if my bones are crushed, I will do my utmost. Kill him until the sky is filled with blood, and the ground is filled with pools of blood. Directly exterminate the entire clan, and feed them to the dogs. Go to hell." Mei Shuiyan laughed and said, "Young Master Jun, although I also acknowledge that your martial arts are indeed marvelous, your personal strength is still a little too shallow, and the war for seizing the heavens is just around the corner. Even if your progress is twice as fast, you are still destined to be of no use in the war for seizing the heavens. Your heart is praiseworthy, and your sentiments are worthy of pity." "Ha!" Jun Moxie snorted and said, "That's not necessarily true." "What not necessarily true? Do you think that you are very amazing just because you can split a mountain and split a rock? Moreover, you have a divine sword in your hand that can cut through gold and jade, and your lightness kung fu is even more marvelous. You are like a tiger that has grown wings. Don't you see the heroes of the world in your eyes? We are already friends. So, I can tell you in a very responsible manner. I'm not afraid of hurting your self-confidence. But, your skills are nothing in front of a real expert. Not even the slightest threat." Jun Dashao looked at Mei Shuiyan, "A real expert? For example?" "Any great master-level expert is enough to take you down. It doesn't matter if it's one of the 8 great masters, or the beast kings of Tianfa, any one of them can do it." Mei Shuiyan replied in a dull manner. "Ha, so you're saying that this naturally includes you and your sister?" "Of course, this naturally includes me and Qian Sun. I only need to use 50% of my Xian Qi, and I can kill you with a wave of my hand. It doesn't matter how marvelous your agility skills are. This is the truth. Don't ever doubt it." Mei Shuiyan chuckled as she looked at Jun Moxie, "So, young man, you'd better practice hard. There are some things that you'll understand when you grow up." Jun Moxie almost fainted. "Don't I know that I can't really contend against you guys with abnormal strength? But, this tone is like an old man who has experienced the vicissitudes of life speaking to a young man who has just come out of this world. It also sounds like a mother comforting her young son. This young master is an 8-foot-tall man. How can I be looked down upon like this?" The Qian Sun Serpent Queen also opened her beautiful eyes wide in astonishment. How can elder sister speak like this? This tone isn't like her usual self. It's a little fierce in appearance, but weak in heart. Even Mei Shuiyan's expression didn't change. But, she was shocked in her heart. She was shocked by her own words and actions. That was because she had been guarding against him. However, it wasn't the kind of guarding against an enemy. It was the kind of guarding against a man. A woman guarding against a man. For so many years, there hadn't been a man who could make her guard up like this. Because they didn't even put her in her eyes. But, this young man in front of her had made her raise such a thought. "What am I afraid of? I'll surprise you." Jun Moxie said this sentence with unusual confidence. Oh. Young Master Jun has indeed surprised this seat many times. But, to say that you're able to rise from the middle level of the Tianxian realm to at least the supreme realm in less than 3 years' time is still an unprecedented miracle. That's just the ravings of a lunatic. I'm only speaking the truth. I don't think young master will mind, right? Mei Shuiyan said lightly. It was just like what Mei Shuyan had said. The Xian continent's Xian cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds ever since the war for seizing the heavens. And it had given birth to too many extraordinary and talented people. They were brimming with innate talents and miracles. But even the most marvelous existences who advanced the fastest would only reach the supreme realm after the age of 40 with the help of some fortuitous encounter. There had never been an exception. Bailey Luo Yun was already a rare genius in 100 years. He was only 25 years old, but he had already reached the Earth Xian realm. But this genius was nothing compared to the geniuses of the past. If Bailey Luo Yun didn't have any more fortuitous encounters, reaching the supreme realm before the age of 60 would already be a rare achievement. Jun Dashao was only 16 or 17 years old, but he had already reached the Tian Xian realm. He could be said to be a rare genius in 1,000 years. However, there were still 8 or 10 people who had reached this level in the past. But a young genius didn't equal to a genius of a lifetime. In fact, there were very few people who had reached the Tian Xian realm before the age of 20 who had reached the supreme realm before the age of 100. Therefore, Mei Shuyan had said that Jun Moxie was a lunatic talking in his dreams. And this wasn't entirely sarcastic. Miss Mei's words are priceless. How could this Jun mind? But there are many things in this world that can't be imagined. And there are very few things that can't be done. Miss Mei can't do it. But that doesn't mean that other people can't do it. And it doesn't mean that this Jun can't do it. The so-called frogs in the well can't see the sky, they don't know the vastness of the Milky Way. Qian Sun Serpent Queen couldn't help but reprimand him. Jun family's boy, you dare to say that we're frogs in the well? You've got a lot of guts. Did I say that? Could it be that you too are those so-called people? Then, I ask for Miss Mei's forgiveness if that's the case. Jun Moxie didn't bat an eyelid. Instead, he fiercely retorted. Qian Sun Serpent Queen, be quiet. The young Master Jun must have something to rely on since he has dared to speak such wild words. Perhaps, we're just frogs in the well. Mei Shuyan's words seemed to be reprimanding Qian Sun Serpent Queen. But a sensible person could tell that she was implying that Jun Moxie was overestimating his capabilities. Chapter 480. The corners of the young Master Jun's mouth curled up in an arrogant manner as he slowly continued. Jun Mo Xia was only a third-grade debauchee half a year ago. And he was only a Jade Xian expert before he left for the Southern Heaven City. Jun Mo Xia may not be able to enter the eyes of the Xian Beast Kings of Tian Fa. But he's already at the middle level of the Sky Xian level. Young Mei may have lived for many years, but she's extremely wise and far-sighted. So, how can you judge that Jun Moxie won't be able to climb to the Great Master level in less than 3 years? Or, perhaps, even higher. So, let's see who's talking nonsense in the future. Mei Shuyan was left speechless as she listened to Jun Dashao's arrogant words. That's right. He's transformed from a good-for-nothing trash into a Tian Xian expert in only half a year. He's completed a process that an ordinary person may not be able to experience in their lifetime. So, why can't he make another breakthrough in 2 years? Jun Dashao's voice resounded in the ears of the stunned Mei Shuyan. There's nothing in this world that can stop me if I, Jun Moxie, want to do something. Even the heavens can't stop me. Jun Moxie's tone of voice was very dull. But it contained a heroic spirit that moved Mei Shuyan and Mei Shuyan. Mei Shuyan was still in a trance. But she slowly narrowed her eyes. That was because she had strangely believed in Jun Moxie's arrogant words. In fact, it was a heartfelt belief. And the fact that such a thing could happen was undoubtedly very frightening considering her firm and resolute state of mind. I've heard that you're going to auction an elixir called the Bone Tempering Pill in your aristocratic hall. Mei Shuyan smiled faintly, but she had already secretly circulated her yuan qi, intending to quickly calm the throbbing in her heart, and maintain her icy heart. Ha, what kind of elixir is this? It's just a little plaything. Is Miss Mei interested in it? June Moxie smiled. Little toy. Young Master June, you really dare to say such things. This kind of little thing may not have much use for us profound beasts, but for you human profound practitioners, it is a good thing to recreate the universe. Don't tell me that your master has not taught you this. But you actually took it out to auction. I can't help but admire your courage. Mei Shuyan smiled faintly, but her eyes were solemn. I think that once the authenticity of the items in this auction is confirmed, even the 3 Holy Lands will send people here. A pill that can refine the bones of a Xiantian-born human is definitely a divine item that has never appeared in this world before. The 3 Holy Lands will also send people here. That's not possible, right? This pill is only an ordinary item that can slightly compact the bones of the human body, that's all. The 3 Holy Lands have stood strong for thousands of years. How could they take a fancy to this kind of thing? June Moxie was stunned. Why is it not possible? Only an ordinary item? You really dare to say that? You are also a profound practitioner. Don't you know that the human body, whether it's a heaven-sent genius or a diligent practitioner, will always have some inconsistencies? If you can perform one move at the same time, you won't be able to perform another. Therefore, a profound practitioner's martial skill has a relative flaw. And we usually call this flaw. Moreover, the speed of one's attack is closely related to one's bones and meridians. There are many experts who spend their entire lives in pursuit of increasing their speed, even if it's just a snap of their fingers. But, they can't break through in the end. Mei Shuyan was somewhat helpless, and, you have this thing in your hand. It's extremely possible for an expert who has been stuck in a certain realm to make a breakthrough. But, you've taken it out to auction. You should know that even an expert who is above the great master level can only use his innate physique and bones to cultivate. There's no way for him to change it. But, even the slightest effect of this bone-tempering pill would be enough to make a powerhouse's strength advance a step further with the help of a slight change in their bones. You should know how difficult it is to advance a step further on the basis of such a powerhouse. So, that's how it is. I've overlooked this, June Moxie nodded while pondering. It seems that I've thought of this matter in a somewhat simple manner. He raised his head and said, Miss Mei, thank you for your pointers. It's true that the 2 of you possess extraordinary strength. But, it may not be very convenient for you to stay here. How about, you 2 stay in my house? You can keep Sister Qing Han company. You 2 know each other anyway. We can take care of each other in this way. So, it'll be more convenient for us to discuss anything. June Moxie was thinking about wishful thinking in his heart. If he could invite these 2 fairy-like beauties back home, then it would be tantamount to inviting 2 protective talismans for the June family. Moreover, they would be extremely powerful. After all, these 2 women were as beautiful as fairies. Moreover, their strength was even stronger than that of the gods. They were truly capable of repelling all evils. One of them was Mei Shuyan, who was far above the great master level. The other one was the Snake King, whose strength was comparable to the 8 great masters. Moreover, there was also the solitary eagle, the god of the grasslands, who was at home. Let alone the Tianxiang imperial family, even if all the other great masters gathered together, or if the 3 Holy Lands came to invade, they would still be able to ensure their safety. At the very least, the people whom they cared about wouldn't be harmed. Then, they would be able to put down their worries completely. Then, they could make a special trip to the Dongfang family. Then, they could take a detour to the Silver Blizzard City. The Sword Peak collapses the snowy mountains. The 3rd uncle and the 3rd aunt are finally together. This is what June Moxie has been working hard for all this time. However, whether they live in or not. I must practice hard like crazy with my own strength. I must improve my strength, and break through the art of unlocking heaven's fortune and the exquisite Hongjun Pagoda. Only by breaking through will I be able to exert even greater strength. Alright. Then, we'll shamelessly disturb you. I'd also like to take this opportunity to see if I can have a deep talk with your master. I want to deepen the scope of our cooperation. Mei Shuyan hesitated for a moment. Then, she finally agreed. Jun Moxie was overjoyed. The three of them walked together towards Tianxiang City. On the way, Jun Moxie asked curiously, Miss Mei, you once said that those wolf-like people would roar before they attacked. What did they roar about? Mei Shuyan frowned deeply. She thought for a long time before replying, I think it's Tyrannical Crusher. It's been too long since the last battle, so I don't remember it clearly. Jun Moxie's anger soared to the heavens when he heard these words. He fiercely gritted his teeth and cursed, Tyrannical Gash. Yes, that's what they were talking about. How did you know? Mei Shuyan nodded repeatedly. She had finally recalled her distant memories. However, she was still very surprised. She looked at Jun Moxie and said, How did you know? Could it be that your master also participated in the war for seizing the heavens? Jun Moxie was speechless. He walked even faster. After bringing Mei Shuyan and Mei Shuyan back to the Jun family, Jun Moxie arranged for them to stay with Guan Qinghan. After all, they were old acquaintances. Then, he started to practice without stopping. He had received a thick stack of invitations in the past few days. There were invitations from the three princes, invitations from the big families, and even invitations from the Xian Qi families outside of Tianxiang City. Jun Moxie ignored all of them. He didn't have the spare time to pay attention to these small fries. Tang Yuan had been extremely busy during this time. He had to prepare for the auction of the bone-tempering pills. On the other hand, he had to deal with the Huang family. Everything had to be done in a swift and decisive manner. Fatty had finally realized that the auction he was going to host wouldn't be easy. At least, it wouldn't be as easy as it had been in the past. However, he still couldn't change the outcome of the auction even though he had realized this. The most unlucky family was the Golden East City's Huang family. The Huang family had been dreaming ever since their son had entered the Tianxiang city. They had been dreaming that their son would return with a beautiful woman. Perhaps, they had been hoping for a marriage with the Dugu family. Then, their family's strength would rise once again. They had been waiting for such a wonderful news. Their son had suddenly been killed. Moreover, Dugu Zongheng had flown into a rage. In fact, he had demanded an explanation from the Huang family. This had thrown the Huang family into a complete panic. Old man Dugu hadn't even managed to deal with this matter. But, the Huang family's businesses had suffered an unprecedented crisis. Almost all of their business partners had left overnight. In fact, they had unilaterally severed all of their business relationships. Moreover, their businesses had been suppressed. In fact, they hadn't been able to raise their heads. In fact, they had been forced to sell their businesses at a loss. And, this wasn't the end of it. Their businesses had been smashed every 3 to 5 days. Moreover, they had been extorted by local ruffians several times a day. And, the members of their families had come back with bruises all over their bodies. Even the local officials, the lord of the city, who used to sit with the Huang family and touch the bottom of a bottle of wine and talk about everything, had become like the king of hell. For example, a normal procedure would take 3 days. In the past, the Huang family would be able to complete it in half a day. But now, it had been half a month, and they had not even completed 1/3 of the procedure. And they could not complain. If they did, they would immediately stop working. Then, it was not that they could not do it anymore, but they would have to go through the whole process again. The Huang family would have been extremely stupid if they hadn't realized that they had offended such a powerful person at this point. Old man Huang had personally visited the Dugu family. But he had been refused at the door. After a few twists and turns, he had finally seen his daughter. But he had realized that his son hadn't died in vain. He had offended a powerful person that the Huang family couldn't afford to offend. In fact, they couldn't afford to offend such a powerful person. Moreover, they had offended him to death. Old man Huang's legs had gone weak after he had heard the true reason behind this matter. In fact, he had almost fainted. He couldn't help but shed tears. My son, your father doesn't object to your jealousy. But you should also weigh your own weight, right? You're jealous of the Tang family and the Jun family. You even want to kill them. Where did you get the courage to do that? My son is dead. So, it's natural for me to hate him. But this hatred seems insignificant when compared to the survival of the entire family. After all, there are hundreds of people in the family who need to survive. They need to eat. And this is much more important than a son. Old man Huang had become anxious when he had seen the family's foundation decline little by little. And the family's wealth had shrunk at a rapid pace. He was about to throw away his face and beg for mercy from Tang Yuan Dashao. But the Huang family's situation had unexpectedly taken a turn for the better. This unexpected turn of events had boosted old man Huang's confidence. So, he didn't intend to apologize and beg for mercy anymore. Instead, he intended to take back everything. And he wanted to make that damned big fatty and that Jun family debauchee kneel down and beg for mercy. Otherwise, he wouldn't let them off so easily. In fact, old man Huang had even openly declared, my Huang family doesn't fear power. Whoever offends us will pay the price. Whoever hounded my son to death will pay with his life. It doesn't matter who you are. A life for a life. A debt must be repaid. This is a matter of principle. Then, old man Huang had spat out the whole story. The Dugu family had an engagement with us. But they broke the engagement to marry someone else in order to curry favor with the Jun family. And they sold their daughter for glory. My Huang family despises this. But the engagement cannot be changed. My son is dead. But the Dugu family's daughter must still marry into the Huang family according to the engagement. Otherwise, the heavens are watching. The sun is bright. Good and evil will be repaid. Moreover, old man Huang had become even more unyielding towards Tang Yuan. Didn't my son carelessly push you into the latrine to take a bath? Do you need to be so unforgiving? Not only did you kill someone, but you also use such a vicious method to deal with us. Where is justice? Where is justice? This matter had set off a huge uproar. And the fact that Fatty Tang had fallen into the latrine became known to everyone. This had made the Tang family's old man furious. And Fatty Tang had suffered a few times because of this. However, it could be said that Fatty had picked up a rock and smashed it on his own feet. After all, the Huang family's backer would have died out if the bone-tempering pills hadn't been auctioned. And he wouldn't have known about it either. The Huang family had deliberately targeted the Jun family's third young master, Jun Moxie. You're Tian Xiang's #1 debauchee. Didn't you have a good life because you had a capable master? Do you really think that you're from a super family? You've brought chaos to the imperial court, and bullied men and women. You've forcefully taken someone else's fiancé. And you've even hounded him to death. How can such behavior be tolerated? Moreover, you've snatched my Huang family's daughter-in-law. You're courting death. On the other hand, the Huang family had dispatched several experts to beat up the thugs who had gone to cause trouble, and the merchants who hadn't cooperated with them. They had beaten them until they were wailing in misery. The Huang family had made their stand clear. They had vowed to fight these shameless families to the bitter end. They would never yield. The Huang family was full of confidence. This news had shaken the entire court as soon as it had spread out. In fact, the entire world was in an uproar. Who would have thought that the insignificant Huang family would be so crazy? They have the guts to confront the Dugu, Jun, and Tang families at the same time. Could it be that they've eaten too much? Could it be that the Huang family's old man's head has been kicked by a donkey? Has his brain gone haywire because his son was killed? They've provoked the Jun family, the Tang family, and the Dugu family at the same time. This is the behavior of a lunatic. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that they've lost their minds. Instantly, countless people watched coldly from the sidelines to see how this matter would end. Most of the people believed that the Huang family was finished this time. Chapter 481. However, all the aristocratic families seemed to have sensed something different. So, they all looked on with the cold eyes of a bystander. What was even more outrageous was that the emperor of Tianxiang had been living in seclusion ever since the Southern Heaven City's army had returned to the capital. He had completely ignored the big and small matters, and had calmly sat on the fishing platform. He had allowed the wind to blow and the waves to batter him. In any case, I'm pretending to be deaf and dumb. I don't care about anything. So, I'm just pretending to be deaf and dumb. I don't care about anything. The Tianxiang city had become a hot commodity ever since the bone-tempering pill's astonishing efficacy had been spread. Almost every day, people from the aristocratic families would arrive in carriages. The carriages had left deep ruts on the road. So, it could be seen that there was a lot of gold and silver inside. There were also many people who had come without any burden. However, they were holding large amounts of silver notes, and had been exchanging them for gold and silver in the Tianxiang city. In fact, the majority of the money in the Tianxiang city had been transferred to the inns in the past few days. Moreover, there was still an endless stream of people coming from afar. Jun Moxie had entered the Hongjun Pagoda as soon as he had the time after he had returned home. He had been absorbing the heaven and earth spirit qi, transforming it into Jin Yuan, and then exhaling it out. Everyone knew that Jun Moxie was at home. However, no one had seen him. No one was an exception. During this period of time, Jun Moxie had been frantically practicing his martial arts. On the other hand, he had been frantically searching for pill recipes. The art of unlocking the heaven's fortune contained tens of millions of pill recipes. How could it be possible that there weren't any pills suitable for him to refine within these millions of pill recipes? Jun Moxie didn't believe it. However, there were some things that he had to believe. They were very difficult to find. He had searched the entire place, but still hadn't found anything. In fact, this was not surprising. The art of unlocking heaven's fortune was known as the #1 mystical cultivation technique since the beginning of the world. It was not a mystical cultivation technique that mortals could dip their fingers into. In fact, it could even be said to be the ultimate cultivation technique of cultivation. For example, if you were to search for elementary school knowledge in a top-grade encyclopedia, the contents of the book would certainly be extremely shallow. It was not that the quality of the book was not high enough, but rather that the level of the information the scholar was searching for was too low. The young Master Jun was very unlucky to be in this awkward situation. The pill recipes recorded in the Book of Unlocking Heaven's Fortune were all good things. Unfortunately, he was either unable to refine them, or they were useless to him. Some good pills could be refined, and could be refined. However, there was only one result after consuming them, and that was death. Of course, since it was a super encyclopedia, it would definitely not disappoint or give up hope. For example, the 10 years pill was an exception. He believed that there would definitely be other exceptions in this encyclopedia. However, it would definitely take some time to find them. Jun Dashao had over 100 bottles of the 10 years Dan. He had also prepared dozens of bone-tempering pills. So, He believed that it would be enough for him to use. The other nourishing pills would be useless if he were to refine pills for the Xian beasts of Tianfa. In fact, they would be completely meaningless. That was because in the eyes of the Xian beasts, the most important thing was strength. The second was strength. The third was strength. That was what they wanted. That was their only goal. Jun Moxie and Jun Dashao had plundered hundreds of elixirs from the Tianfa forest. It couldn't be said to be a small number. And Jun Dashao's original intention was to use these elixirs to increase his cultivation. He had a large number of valuable elixirs now. However, he didn't have a suitable pill recipe to refine. So, it was a waste. In fact, as long as the elixirs were old, they could be directly consumed by those who had cultivated Xian Qi. Then, they could circulate their Xian Qi to refine them. It could also increase one's cultivation. Take ginseng for example. As long as it was more than 100 years old, it could increase one's cultivation. However, the effects wouldn't be significant. After all, the medicinal power of the ginseng had accumulated over the years. And, it hadn't been refined into a pill that could be absorbed by the human body. On the other hand, there was a saying that every medicine has 3 parts poison. So, the effects wouldn't be good if one were to take only one type of medicine. In fact, it could easily lead to the imbalance of yin and yang. Take ginseng as an example. The attribute of ginseng was masculine. It was true that it could greatly replenish one's vitality. And, it had always been the medicine of choice for doctors. But, its medicinal nature was too strong. So, it could easily lead to negative side effects. Another example was the 1,000 evils and 10,000 poisons fruit that he had obtained from the Tianfa forest. This thing was extremely precious from the human world's point of view. But, it was only slightly inferior when compared to the top-notch pills recorded in the art of unlocking the heaven's fortune. And, the reason why Jun Moxie had attached so much importance to it was because it wasn't particularly high grade. But, it could be included in the 6th layer of the art of unlocking the heaven's fortune. Moreover, it could be used by ordinary people. So, it was exceedingly precious. The attribute of the 1,000 evils and 10,000 poisons fruit could be said to be extreme from the human world's point of view. It was extremely yin and evil. So, it could be obtained within the right time limit. But, its enormous medicinal properties weren't something that an ordinary person could withstand. Even the beast kings of Tianfa might not be able to withstand it. They would obviously break through the bottleneck if they succeeded. And, their cultivation would advance by leaps and bounds. But, their bodies would explode and they would die if they weren't careful. The beast kings of Tianfa were well aware of the dangers involved in this. But, they were willing to risk their lives in order to pursue a breakthrough in their strength. So, they were willing to risk their lives in order to do so. And, this behavior was obviously a waste of resources in the eyes of Jun Dashao. Of course, it wasn't that there weren't some natural elixirs that could directly enhance one's strength after taking them. But, these spiritual herbs were the main ingredients needed in some high-grade pills. So, their efficacy would increase if they could be refined into pills. Moreover, they could benefit many people. So, it would be a waste if they were taken rashly. For example, 1,000-year snow spirit mushroom could increase one's strength by 100 years after taking it. But, it could increase the strength of dozens of people by 100 years if it was refined into pills. One didn't need to ask to know which was more important. In fact, the 1,000 evils and 10,000 poisons fruit could also be considered as one of these pills. And, the beast kings of Tianfa wouldn't be the only ones who would benefit if Jun Moxie could successfully refine it into pills. So, I won't say any more unnecessary words. The days passed like this. And, Jun Moxie's Xian Qi cultivation continued to grow. In fact, he had already gradually broken through the Tian Xian middle level if he were to use Xian Qi as a standard. In fact, he was progressing step by step towards the Tianxian pinnacle level. And, June Moxie would hold a large pile of pill recipes and ponder them carefully during this period of time. So, he wouldn't practice his martial arts. As the saying goes, where there's a will, there's a way. Over time, June Moxie finally had some gains. He had picked out a few pills from the vast array of pill recipes. Although the encyclopedia's primary and secondary knowledge was scarce, it wasn't completely non-existent. Moreover, it was precisely because it was scarce that the contents were extraordinary. Just like the 1,000 evils and 10,000 poisons fruit, it was originally a worldly elixir, but it was included in the 6th level of the art of unlocking heaven's fortune. In the past, when Jun Dashao refined pills, he would only look at the name of the pill recipe and refine the pills according to the book. But, this time, he looked at all the components of the pill recipe, and the densely packed instructions at the back. Apart from the 10 years pill that he had already refined, there were still 7 or 8 other types of pills that could increase one's cultivation. Moreover, all of them had extraordinary effects. This discovery made June Moxie extremely happy. However, he naturally ignored the pills that belonged to the 1st or 2nd level. Now that the system was at the 3rd level, he naturally had to refine the higher level pills. These 3 pill recipes were the Vitality Linkage Pill, the Vitality Gathering Pill, and the Heaven Vitality Pill. These were the 3 types of pills that June Moxie had used a tremendous amount of effort to filter out. From the densely packed pill recipes, he had explored them bit by bit, analyzed them one by one, and inquired about them one by one. This amount of work took a lot out of June Moxie. In fact, young Master June was very confident that if he had been this diligent in his previous life, Tsinghua University and Peking University would have been as easy as taking something out of his pocket. He would have been able to obtain all the doctorates and master's degrees in the entire world with ease. He would have been able to obtain them with lightning speed and ease. The Vitality Linkage Pill was a type of pill that increased the speed of vital energy flow in the meridians of the human body. Naturally, it also included the mystical energy of the mainland and the heavenly punishment force. Although this pill could not directly increase one's strength, it could greatly increase the speed of vital energy flow. Think about it, the same river that was 10 feet wide, with the same amount of water. One river was calm and unhurried, while the other river was turbulent and surging. Then, which river was more powerful? The effects of the Vitality Linkage Pill did not stop there. If one were to judge based on the comparison just now, if the meridians of a normal cultivator were a plain river, then the meridians of a person who had consumed the Vitality Linkage Pill were equivalent to a tall mountain waterfall. Although the water flow was still the same, there was already a fundamental difference. The effect of the Vitality Linkage Pill was to transform the plain river into a tall mountain waterfall. Think about it, an expert who could originally launch 3 attacks in a breath's time, after this transformation, could launch 9 attacks. Moreover, it was more than enough. When experts exchanged blows, life and death were separated by a hair's breadth. It seemed like a difference of 3 times, but the lethality of the attack was increased by at least 10 times. This was the principle of the difference of a millimeter, but the difference of 1,000 miles. This was especially true for the beast kings of the Tian Fa forest who were renowned for their speed. This pill was almost tailor-made for them, and could be said to be an immortal pill that could seize the fortune of the heavens. This kind of astonishing transformation, even June Moxie himself could feel the terror. However, high rewards were often accompanied by high risks. This pill contained an extremely great danger. For cultivators whose meridians were not flexible or whose mystical cultivation was above Shenxian's level, after consuming this pill, all the meridians in their body would immediately rupture, and there would be absolutely no hope of recovery. The Vitality Linkage Pill was worthy of the word linkage. Vitality Congregation Pill. Chapter 482. As for the restrictions, it's the same as the Vitality Linkage Pill. High returns are always accompanied by high risks. At this point, I believe that everyone should have realized that only a cultivation idiot like Jun Mo Xia hadn't realized that this spirit-gathering pill was basically the same as the spirit-gathering pill mentioned in the cultivation novels of his previous life. However, in terms of effectiveness, it was far more effective than the spirit-gathering pill. Heavenly Vitality Pill. This pill had no other benefits apart from increasing one's cultivation. It could be said that it was an upgraded version of the 10 years pill. Taking one pill could increase one's cultivation by 50 years. However, the restrictions were slightly higher than the 10 years pill. Not everyone could take it. Only those at the level of Tian Xian and above could take it. Jun Moxie bared his fangs and brandished his claws in the Hongjun Pagoda. He was laughing maniacally. Damn it! What does it mean to say that hard work pays off? Isn't this the case? Sure enough, there's a harvest for every bit of work. I've finally found these 3 pills under this young master's painstaking efforts. This is simply like a village that has a glimmer of hope at the end of the tunnel. However, Jun Dashao still had some doubts. In his mind, strength was everything. The Heavenly Vitality Pill was much more effective than the Vitality Linkage Pill and the Vitality Congregation Pill. It could increase one's cultivation by 50 years in one go. How respectable and terrifying was this? Why was the Heavenly Vitality Pill's restriction so low? Moreover, the other 2 pills could only be taken by those at the level of Xin Xian and above. However, the Heavenly Vitality Pill could only be taken by those at the level of Tian Xian and above. Wasn't the disparity between the 2 too big? This didn't make sense. If his doubts were known by any other cultivator, they would probably beat him until his face was blooming like a peach blossom, his eyes were dazzling like stars, his head was like a pig's head, and his butt was like an elephant's butt. At the very least, they would let him know why flowers were so red. Just like that, he might even be so angry that he would roar and spit out dozens of tails of blood. What an idiot, a cultivation idiot. This kind of heaven-defying idiocy had obviously reached the point where even the Jade Emperor was speechless. How could he have such good luck? How could such a good thing fall into the hands of this idiot? A good cabbage was taken by a pig. In for a penny, in for a pound. Jun Moxie decided to stay in the Hongjun Pagoda to cultivate and refine pills. When he was thirsty or hungry, he would directly swallow the ordinary, medicinal herbs he had on hand. Although it was a little wasteful, this kind of 1,000-year sealwort could not only satisfy his hunger, but also quench his thirst. Most importantly, he still had a lot of them in stock. Now that time was rather tight, he didn't care too much about it. Compared to some of the heavenly elixirs, it was obvious that this thing was no longer worthy of Jun Dashao's eyes. Jun Dashao's extravagance was a reckless waste of heavenly treasures. If this were to fall into the eyes of any medicinal family in the Xian continent, they would be so distressed that they would hover between life and death, and then die and come back to life again. Ah, torture! These were all top-notch elixirs that could only be harvested in the depths of the Tian Fa forest. This was also the terrifying accumulation of the Tian Fa forest for thousands of years. And how many people in this world could safely reach the core of the Tian Fa forest? Even experts at the level of the 8 great masters would have to worry about not being able to come out alive if they went in. It would already be an amazing feat to find a 100-year sealwort in the market. But, this Jun Dashao was actually munching on a 1,000-year sealwort like it was a carrot. Moreover, he was sighing non-stop. It's tasteless. It tastes like wax. It's not tasty. This young master is being abused. If these words of his were to spread out, there would surely be countless white-haired divine doctors and the patriarchs of the medicinal families scrambling over each other. I beg you, please let me be abused once. I beg you, I represent my 8 generations of ancestors and future generations to sincerely beg you, please abuse me once, or, if he were to be seen by a miser like Fatty Tang, who regarded money as his life, Fatty would certainly cry and shout, "Brother, you're my blood brother. Please abuse me once. I'm willing to do it 10 times. I'm even willing to do it 100 times. You're not eating elixirs. You're eating mountains of gold and silver. You're making my heart ache. Jun Moc's face was flushed as he once again took the 1,000-year Solomon's seal to fill his stomach. His body was surging with vigor, and he had nowhere to vent it. So, he first calmly circulated his chi, and then played with his fists and legs for a long time. Then, he hummed and snorted as he practiced his swords. Finally, he began to refine pills again. Jun Dashao was quite proficient in concocting elixirs by now. After all, he had been crazily refining the bone-tempering pill and the others. So, he had accumulated a lot of experience. Faced with these 3 newly researched elixirs, Jun Dashao naturally started with what he thought to be the lowest level elixir. After accumulating experience, he would refine the Heavenly Yuan pill, which was more difficult to refine, but also had the highest value. After all, these were all top-grade medicinal ingredients. It would be a pity to waste them. His first choice was naturally the simple vitality linkage pill. Jun Dashao was in high spirits. He struck an awesome pose, and imitated the living Buddha Ji-gong's mantra, "Oh mommy, mommy. 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 Mommy." He pointed his finger like a sword. The furnace of good fortune rose into the air with a weng sound. It stood upright in the void, and slowly rotated. Then, it radiated thousands of propitious chi and 10,000 rays of light as it rotated. The black primal chaos flame, which had been burning peacefully, silently rose into the sky with a loud rumble. It used the flame to support the body of the furnace of good fortune. The black flame was like 10,000 ghostly tongues of flame. The flame reached the sky, and burned faintly. The black flame also soared into the furnace of good fortune. Amidst the multicolored radiance of the furnace of good fortune, the black flame was dazzling. Jun Moxie revealed a proud smile. He was smug and full of confidence. His right hand grasped the void, and the 21 medicinal ingredients that he had prepared earlier floated into the air. Then, like moths flying into a flame, they entered the furnace of good fortune in a single file. Jun Moxie quickly formed countless hand seals, and with a bang sound, the lid of the furnace of good fortune automatically flew up and merged with the body of the furnace of good fortune. At this moment, the primal chaos flame also exploded. The flame rapidly soared, and the entire furnace of good fortune was enveloped by the primal chaos flame. Jun Moxie followed the requirements of the Dan technique. He used the 7-star steps, and swiftly moved around the black flame. His hand seals changed in a complicated manner, and the spiritual power in his body surged out to support the primal chaos flame. Time passed by quickly. Jun Dashao suddenly felt that something was wrong. Crap. I've been refining for a long time. At the very least, it should be 10 times longer than before. How come there is still no movement? In the past, 10 furnaces of 10 years pills would have been ready by now. But, there is still no movement. What's going on? After a while, Jun Dashao finally felt that he couldn't hold on any longer. He felt dizzy, and his steps were weak. His entire body was drenched in sweat. The spiritual power in his body was about to reach the bottom. But, the furnace of good fortune that was surrounded by the black flame still didn't show any movement. I must hold on. I must hold on. I can't drop the ball at this critical moment. Jun Moxie clenched his teeth. He took out a 10 years pill, and threw it into his mouth. Even if it can't increase my martial power, it can still restore my spiritual power. Finally, Jun Dashao was exhausted, and couldn't hold on any longer. But, the goddess of luck once again favored Jun Dashao. The furnace of good fortune issued a clanging sound, and its lid flew up. The primal chaos flame quietly shrank into a small pile, and the furnace of good fortune slowly fell down. My God. It's too difficult. How can it be so difficult? Isn't it just a medicine that's similar to the bone-tempering pill? How can it be so difficult to practice? This young master's life was nearly taken away. Jun Moxie gasped for breath. He wiped his sweat, and his legs trembled like noodles. Then, he finally sat down on the ground. It seemed as if he had done it many times in a night. Or, it seemed as if he had run 1,000 miles without stopping. He stuck out his tongue and panted for a long time. Then, he staggered and struggled to stand up. Then, he stuck his head out to look at the furnace of good fortune. How can this be? Jun Moxie cried out in astonishment. He couldn't help but rub his eyes in disbelief. Then, he fixed his eyes to look again. A mass of black ash was calmly lying at the bottom of the furnace of good fortune. Jun Dashao's entire body was paralyzed like a deflated ball. He had fallen to the ground. His body was exhausted. His martial power had been overdrawn. He had been full of confidence, and had suffered a cruel blow from failure. He had spent so much effort. But, he had dropped the ball in the end. My God! Why is my life so bitter? Fu*k. I don't believe this evil. I'm going to fight you. I don't believe that I can't deal with you. Jun Moxie jumped up with a malevolent look on his face. He pointed one hand to the sky, and the other to the ground. Then, he closed his eyes, and started to revolve the art of unlocking heaven's fortune with all his might. His dantian warmed up slightly. Then, a wisp of pure spiritual power soared into his meridians. The Hongjun Pagoda's enormous amount of heaven and earth spiritual qi seemed to have encountered a tornado. Like 100 rivers converging into the sea, it rushed towards Jun Moxie's body. A long, long time passed. No one knew how much time had passed. Then, Jun Moxie's eyes opened, and a bright light burst out. His physical strength and spiritual power had been completely restored. But, when he tried to examine his body, Jun Moxie was surprised to find that he had overdrawn his limits. This time, he had overdrawn his strength to the limit. And, the result of this overdrawing was that the art of unlocking heaven's fortune had advanced by a large step. Just from the amount of spiritual qi he absorbed, he could clearly feel that it was several times more than what he had absorbed in the past. Strange. Jun Dashao scratched his head. He couldn't understand it no matter how much he thought about it. He hurriedly poked his head out, and went to his own courtyard. Only then did he realize that he had spent a full day and a night to concoct the pills. He had already stayed in the Hongjun Pagoda for more than 10 days. His snow-white robe was now completely unrecognizable. It was extremely filthy. His hair was messy like a chicken's nest. His face was covered in black stains. Those were sweat stains. He looked even more like a beggar than a beggar. Jun Moxie hurriedly gave some instructions. Then, he stepped into the bathtub naked. He scrubbed himself while he pondered. What's going on? Chapter 483. But Jun Dashao, who was an idiot at the cultivation level, naturally didn't know the reason behind this. This time's failure in concocting the pills had already made him categorize these 3 pills as extremely difficult to concoct. In his mind, the effects of the heavenly yuan pill were so powerful that they were naturally the most precious. They were definitely more difficult to concoct than the vitality linkage pill. After resting for a while, Jun Dashao took a bath and prepared to go back in again. The little lowly was serving him bashfully at the side with a blushing face. Looking at her young master's fair and strong body that seemed to emit a mysterious luster, the little lass's face was flushed red and her body felt hot. Her heart was thumping wildly, and her pretty eyes wandered about, but she couldn't help but steal glances. So handsome. How could he be so handsome? Young master is a man, the little lass thought to herself. What? Third young master is out. Let me in quickly. Why? Why can't I go in? I'm his brother, a good brother, you know. He's bathing. Fuck. We're both men, what's wrong with me going in while he's bathing? Do you think I can rape him? Hurry up and get lost. Shouting indignantly all the way, Tang Yuan and Tang Dashao rushed in. When Tang Yuan entered the room, the door of Jun Dashao's room was a little too narrow, and a door was forcibly squeezed open. Jun Moxie was resting in the bathtub with his eyes closed. How could he not be angry when he suddenly opened his eyes and saw his whole face? Third young master. I'm so angry, I'm so angry. Motherfucker. Tang Yuan didn't wait for Jun Moxie to erupt in anger and started to fly into a rage himself. There's actually such a thing, that Huang family really doesn't know life from death. They actually want me to pay with my life for that despicable son of theirs, and they actually want to hold a ghost marriage. They want the Dugu family to marry Dugu Xiaoyi to their son's memorial tablet, and the most abominable thing is that they want you to kowtow in front of their son's memorial tablet. What kind of world was this? Damn it, can rabbits threaten wolves now? Fatty, what's going on? Jun Moxie closed his eyes and frowned as he lay in the bathtub. He was getting impatient. I'm naked right now. If we were to meet in the bathhouse on a normal day, we'd be naked and honest. Naturally, I wouldn't have any misgivings. Brother's figure is so outstanding, how could I lose out? But at this moment, you suddenly barged in and stared at my bathtub with your saliva flying everywhere. I'm really a little embarrassed. Boss, you don't know what's going on with this Huang family. They've suddenly become arrogant. They're even more arrogant than a dog with a bald tail. Tang Yuan jumped up and down. He looked very ferocious. Now you can directly start spouting nonsense to the outside world. He was simply courting death to the extreme, and it was truly intolerable. I've decided to mobilize my troops and exterminate them. But, I don't know what my grandfather is thinking. He has specifically sent someone to the aristocratic hall to warn me that I mustn't act blindly without thinking. The Dugu family has also bided their time. I'm Fu * King depressed. Could it be that the insignificant Huang family can overturn the heavens? Huang family. They've become arrogant. Jun Moxie had been blindly practicing his martial arts and refining pills for the past few days. But, he had gradually become confused. So, he suddenly sat up, and splashed water everywhere. His complexion had also become serious. That was because Jun Dashao had suddenly recalled the words that Dugu Wudi's second madam had said when Huang Shu Lu had been executed. My Huang family also had an ancestor from the illusory ocean of blood. Moreover, the words that Mei Shuiyan had said earlier also came to his mind at this time. The effect of your pills is very miraculous. I reckon that the people from the 3 Holy Lands will also come to the auction of these bone-tempering pills. Jun Moxie frowned as he pondered, could it be that the illusory ocean of blood of the 3 Holy Lands has been triggered this time? Moreover, the person who has come is coincidentally that ancestor of the Huang family? But, isn't this too fucking coincidental? Fatty, don't be anxious. There's no use in being anxious. First, tell me everything that happened after you took action. Don't leave anything out. Jun Moxie closed his eyes, and lay back down. But, his mind was rapidly thinking. He didn't want to miss a single word that Tang Yuan had said. That was because he wanted to see some real things from these tiny clues. Tang Yuan's temperament was also extraordinary. He seemed to have realized something after a moment of hot-headedness. His heart thumped, and he didn't dare to talk nonsense. So, he honestly recounted everything that had happened in great detail. He had the impression that his big brother, Jun Moxie, had always been fearless. So, when had he ever seen such a cautious expression on his face? Could it be that this matter is very serious? Could it be that the Huang family is hiding a very powerful person? Jun Moxie listened to Tang Yuan's story. The Huang family didn't have the strength to fight back from the beginning to the end. In fact, they had even started to look for their connections everywhere to beg for mercy. The entire Huang family had been living in a state of constant anxiety. They were only a few more breaths of life than the dead. But, they had been acting very differently in the last few days. They had gone from being subservient to being overbearing and unyielding. Moreover, the conditions that they had proposed were very difficult for the three big families to accept. It was clear that they were making things difficult for them. Moreover, they seemed to be using the three big families to establish their power. Why would the Huang family dare to do this? The imperial family and several tyrannical families of the mainland wouldn't be able to rely on them if they were the forces of the mortal world. So, why would they dare to do this? June Moxie had thought of this problem at first. The Huang family couldn't be full of fools. They had been willing to compromise in the beginning. So, they wouldn't have taken the lives of their entire family as a joke. However, the sudden change in attitude had made June Moxie come to a conclusion in his heart. He believed that the Huang family wouldn't have dared to do such a suicidal thing if the Huang family's ancestor hadn't suddenly returned. Moreover, they wouldn't have had a way out even if they were given 10,000 times more courage. However, the situation would have been completely different if the Huang family's ancestor had come from the illusory ocean of blood to back them up. The Huang family wouldn't have dared to make a move against a colossus like the Silver Blizzard City if they had the support of the illusory ocean of blood. The Jun family, the Tang family, and the Dugu family. However, the Huang family had been clamoring so fiercely. But, there hadn't been any rain even after so many days had passed. This had made June Moxie even more certain of Mei Shuian's words. These people have come for the bone-tempering pills. Tang Yuan, don't be impatient, June Moxie said in an understated manner. Is the insignificant Huang family worth making such a fuss over? Let's wait for my brother to get busy for a few days. Let's leave them to dry first. It's no big deal. Sometimes, taking revenge is more satisfying than taking it slowly. Fatty was stunned. He didn't object to Jun Dashao's words. After all, it was more fun to abuse people slowly. But, the problem was that this style didn't seem like June Moxie's style. Also, don't leave the bone-tempering pills in the aristocratic hall. I'll ask Golding to go with you to retrieve them. It'll be safer to leave them with me. A cold light flashed in June Moxie's eyes. You want to deal with me? You even want my bone-tempering pills? Is there such a cheap thing in this world? I don't care if you're from the illusory ocean of blood or whatever. What can the three holy lands do? You'll have to bear the consequences if you want to oppose me. You've dared to clamor with this young master because you have something to rely on. This young master won't kill you at once. He'll slowly toy with you bit by bit. The solitary eagle is going to retrieve the bone-tempering pills. That's foolproof. Even if the 8 great masters were to besiege him, the solitary eagle of the prairie would still be able to fly back and escape unscathed. Well, this is also good. The aristocratic hall has been constantly being visited by people at night these past few days. Hai Chenfeng and Song Shang have been keeping watch. But, they've had very little effect. I've been on tenterhooks for a long time now. Tang Yuan pretended to wipe his cold sweat. Hai Chenfeng and Song Shang would have probably flayed this fatty if they'd heard these words. The two of them were the ones who had to deal with the nightwalkers. So, they were exhausted every night. In fact, the aristocratic hall would have been torn down a long time ago if they hadn't been there. However, this fatty Tang's snoring was enough to shake the entire Tianxiang city. In fact, it was even possible for his snoring to travel 8 to 5 kilometers away. Well, fatty, you don't have to be stubborn if someone catches you and interrogates you about the whereabouts of the pills. You can even tell them that the pills are in the Jun family's elegant fragrance courtyard. Moreover, the quantity is considerable. Moreover, the quality of the pills is even better. June Moxie said in a serious manner. Why? Tang Yuan asked in a puzzled manner. The elegant fragrance courtyard is elder sister Qing Han's residence. What will we do if those people really break in? Elder sister Qing Han is a woman. Isn't this too inappropriate? Appropriate. Very appropriate. June Moxie smiled and said, you don't need to worry about these trivial things. You can say this if you get caught. You can't go wrong if you listen to me. Fatty, you only know that it's elder sister Qing Han's residence. But, you don't know that there are 2 tigresses living there. Bah! Tigresses aren't as scary as those 2. They're at least Empress-level tigresses. It doesn't matter who these people are. They'll die miserably if they believe your words and come to the elegant fragrance courtyard to steal the pills. This is the same as rubbing a lit candle on a bag of explosives. It's a different approach to achieve the same result. Moreover, this isn't really a lie. June Dashao had given Mei Shuyan a few bone-tempering pills of the highest quality, and had asked her to appraise them. Wahahaha, this is an endless loop. It's an absolutely unsolvable death trap. Tang Yuan nodded in a daze. He didn't know what June Moxie meant. But, he instinctively chose to believe him. The matter was more or less explained. The water in the bathtub was getting cold. June Moxie glared at him and said, have you seen enough? Fatty Tang said, ah. Have you seen enough? Chapter 484. Stop right there. Do you think that your big brother wants to see your bare body? It's not like I haven't seen it when we used to go to the brothel. Your big brother looks at your skinny little body and feels disgusted. Tang Yuan curled his lips in disdain. But, his curling lips turned into a grin because he was too fat. He stood up, patted his thick buttocks, and swaggered out the door. Fatty, you've broken my door today. 5,000 taels of silver will automatically be deducted from your bonus. Fatty had unexpectedly spoken rudely and ridiculed his majestic body. June Moxie couldn't help but fly into a rage as he shouted, gold. Fatty fell to the ground with a thump outside the door. What? 5,000 taels of gold? What kind of door is so expensive? June Moxie leisurely cleaned the water stains on his body. Little Ku-er blushed as she helped him put on dry clothes. It had to be said that crossing over to another world was very harmful. June Moxie had always been an assassin in his previous life. But, he had now become accustomed to the days where he had to stretch out his hands to get what he wanted. He had truly fallen from grace. June Moxie put on a loose robe. Then, he gently pinched the little Ku-er's face. The little Ku-er pouted coquettishly. June Dashao laughed heartily as he jumped out of the door. He then went to look for Solitary Eagle, and told him to go to the aristocratic hall to get the medicine. June Wui and June Zhantian were busy preparing for Guan Qing Han's adoption. There was also an old man in the residence who had nothing to do at the moment, Dugu Zongheng. Ever since the Dugu family heard that June Moxie could cure the old man's old injury, old man Dugu had been staying at the June family's residence. They were all acquaintances and future in-laws. Dugu Zongheng didn't treat himself as an outsider at all. He hadn't even been here for a day, but he was already ordering the servants of the June family around. Moreover, June Moxie didn't have any free time these past few days. Dugu Zongheng, who had been waiting in vain for a few days, was quite dissatisfied. Therefore, old man Dugu's earth-shattering voice frequently resounded throughout the June family's residence. It was like a bolt from the blue, and it was comparable to Fatty's snoring that startled Sizhou City. This made the servants of the June family suddenly realize that serving Grandpa June was such a blissful thing to do. June Moxie treated old man Dugu at the fastest speed possible, like a divine doctor who had rushed to the scene. In fact, there wasn't much to treat. He only inserted a few golden needles into the fleshy area of the old man's buttocks. Then, he circulated the art of unlocking heaven's fortune through the old man's meridians. Although this action wasn't much, old man Duga Zongheng immediately felt his entire body relax by more than half. However, this old man was also a meticulous person. He carefully noted down the places where June Moxie had inserted the needles. He muttered to himself in doubt, "It seems that there's nothing else in that area except flesh. Is there really an acupuncture point? How can a few needles in the buttocks be so effective? This is really strange." This also led to Duga Zongheng going to ask several divine doctors in the capital about this. However, he ended up harshly scolding them. That was because the divine doctors all agreed that the needles had no effect other than pain. Old man Dugu couldn't help but sigh. It's no wonder there are so few doctors in this world who can cure serious illnesses, because Dugu Zongheng's old injury had been cured by acupuncture in those spots. So, how could he not scold them? Quack ah! Quacks harm people like this. The few miracle doctors were so angry that they almost went crazy on the spot. This was only the first time. Dugu Zongheng wasn't able to get rid of the root cause. But, he was extremely satisfied. He hadn't felt this relaxed and comfortable feeling in the past few decades. That night, Dugu Zongheng and Jun Zhantian swayed back and forth as they drank until they were dead drunk. "I haven't drunk like this in decades. How can it not be satisfying?" Jun Moxie had already entered the Hong Jun Pagoda amidst the chaos. And, he had started a new round of struggle. Jun Moxie had discovered that the effects of exhausting his true essence during alchemy were much better than when he was risking his life to restore it. Two burly men were riding their mounts in the distant south. They were riding towards the north in high spirits. Their mounts could be said to be horses, but they had horns on their heads. Moreover, their faces weren't very long. But, they didn't look like deer. Their hooves were covered with white fur. It seemed as if they were wearing gloves. But, they were running at a godly speed. Not to mention ordinary horses, even the legendary divine steeds wouldn't be able to compare with them. What was even more outrageous was that these two burly men weren't riding their mounts. They didn't have any reins, saddles, or stirrups. Moreover, they weren't shouting at each other. In fact, it seemed as if these strange mounts were looking for a path on their own. But, the expressions of these two men made it seem as if they weren't mistaken. Behind them, there was a huge bundle on the buttocks of those two strange mounts. And, the size of these bundles had reached a terrifying degree. Its weight must be considerable as well. Many people's eyes were shining as they walked, and their mouths were dripping with saliva. That's because, these two huge bundles were emitting a strong scent. They should be filled with medicinal ingredients. Moreover, they were all top-notch rare medicinal ingredients. No. Just saying, top-notch, and, rare, wouldn't be enough to describe their preciousness. It would be more appropriate to say that they were heavenly treasures that only existed in the legends. Only this kind of thing could emit such an attractive scent. Not to mention consuming it, even smelling the scent from behind one's buttocks would make one feel a lot more refreshed. Naturally, there were many people who coveted such a good item. Therefore, the journey of these two burly men couldn't be considered to be peaceful. Countless herb gatherers came up to strike up a conversation with them. They wanted to buy them at a high price. There were also countless medicinal aristocratic families eyeing them. As for thieves who planned to rob, steal, or rob along the way, there were countless of them, but, these two burly men brazenly headed north. They didn't seem to care at all. And, they actually walked over safely. Waves after waves of robbers intercepting them didn't seem to have any effect on these two men. In fact, they didn't even take them seriously. This was because they had already walked more than half the way. Not only did they not delay their journey, but their leather robes were still as clean as ever. There wasn't even a speck of dust on them. In fact, the two of them even talked leisurely as they walked. It was as if they were on a sightseeing tour. Fourth brother, this journey is quite long. But, it's quite enjoyable. This was a burly man in embroidered robes. He had a leopard's head and round eyes. His beard was bursting outwards like iron bars. This burly man's physique made everyone who saw him think of a string of praises: majestic, valiant, mighty, tall, strong. Ninth brother, you. Sigh, I don't know what to say to you. Why did you insist on coming here? If you hadn't been so stubborn, I would have arrived a few days ago on third brother's back. But, look at you now. The other burly man had the same physique as the one in front of him. In fact, he was even more muscular. He was truly too muscular. In fact, he looked like a bear. However, his tone was one of complaint. I didn't have to travel for more than 10,000 miles. It's really unlucky. I, your fourth brother, have suffered because of you this time. When have we ever had to waste time like this, fourth brother, hee hee. You also know that I haven't come out to play for several decades. This is such a rare opportunity. Hee hee. It's quite nice to run around while I'm at it. I can look at the verdant hills and clear waters. I can also exercise my fists and legs along the way. These days are simply too blissful. It's like the days of an immortal. The burly man in embroidered robes had a silly smile on his face. His eyes were filled with satisfaction. He smacked his lips and said, "The only regret is that these people can't take a beating. They fall to the ground as soon as I touch them." It's simply not satisfying enough. Why don't there be a few supremes like Shen Xian who come out to snatch our things? Bah! I'll spit on your face. Aren't you talking nonsense to practice? How many people in the entire continent can withstand a blow from you, the Golden Tiger King? You're planning to let Supreme Shen Xian come out to cut the road as a little thief. What are you thinking? Don't tell anyone that you know me with your IQ. I'm so wise and farsighted. But, I can't afford to lose my face like this. The burly man rolled his huge eyelids in a bad mood. He then sighed, that motherfucker third brother Crane is too much. He doesn't want to come by himself. But, he doesn't want the Eagle King to send us off. He's so cruel that he wants us to hurry on our way. I'll go back. I don't think there's anything wrong with going slower. The Golden Tiger King Earthcracker scratched his head. He was somewhat embarrassed. I have acrophobia, that's why I said you're a burden. The burly man was the Bear King, Bear Mountain. He rebuked him without any trace of politeness. I didn't want you to come, but you insisted on coming. Wouldn't it have been better if you just let third brother Crane come? Look at how much trouble you've caused along the way. You've massacred everyone along the way. Hee hee, hee hee. The Tiger King Earthcracker rubbed his hands, and smiled flatteringly. But, fourth brother, isn't this satisfying? But, why don't these people have any background? They don't even have a backer like Great Master Shen Xian. I'm so disappointed. Bear Mountain looked at him in a bad mood. He then heaved a long sigh. It seemed as if he was extremely depressed. Ah, fourth brother, this trip to Tianxiang is a rare opportunity. So, we should play for a few more days, the Tiger King Earthcracker said with a salivating face. Wouldn't it be satisfying to go back after delivering the medicine? Why don't we stay there for a few more days? Then, we can find people to compare notes with. I reckon that there will be many people coming to Tianxiang this time. Or, we might even be able to bask in Senior Feng's limelight if we get the chance, hee hee hee. You pig brain. Haven't you basked in enough limelight? Bear Mountain cursed in a flustered and exasperated manner. Why do I have a sworn brother like you? Alas! Don't talk to me. I don't need to see you again. I want to say that I don't know you anymore. Hee hee. Fourth brother, please calm down. Hee hee. Fourth brother, please calm down. Please don't be angry. The Tiger King had a silly smile on his face. Bear Mountain was helpless. So, he covered his forehead with his hand, and heaved a long sigh. This was something that Long Crane would often do when he was with him. Bear Mountain finally understood Long Crane's feelings at that time. It was a feeling of wanting to kick this thick-skinned guy to death. Chapter 485. Today is the third watch. Working hard at the fourth watch, this is too much. We are all brothers. Big Bear silently thought to himself. He grit his teeth, and looked at Tiger King Earthcracker. In fact, there was a trace of sympathy in his eyes. Everyone is going to be kicked to death. These two giants were the ones who had fulfilled their agreement with June Moxie. They were going to deliver the first batch of elixirs to Tianxiang City from the Tian Fa forest. The Xian Beast Kings hadn't done anything else since June Moxie had left. They had been urging the Xian Beasts to look for the best elixirs day and night. Then, they had gathered them together. Now, they had finally gathered a considerable amount of elixirs. And, they couldn't wait to send them over. For the sake of these two quotas, the 7 great beast kings were about to start an internal fight. It couldn't be helped, this kind of travel at public expense opportunity was too rare, not to mention that there might be great benefits. Who wouldn't want to go? In the end, the Bear King and the Tiger King won the 2 spots because of their great strength. As for Long Crane, he had to stay in the Tian Fa forest to preside over the big picture. In Bear Mountain's words, I won't preside over the big picture anyway. If I stay, I might have to put up an arena in the Tian Fa forest every day. Or, there might be another Xian beast tide. Long Crane had no choice but to pinch his nose in the face of such shameless threats. But, he still gave the 2 Xian beast kings a warning before he left. Use your legs to run. No flying Xian beasts are allowed to use them. Crane King had spoken. Which bird in the Tian Fa forest would dare to act rashly? Therefore, Bear Mountain felt wronged all the way. However, Tiger King hadn't been out of Tian Fa for decades. So, everything was new to him. So, he was in high spirits along the way. This directly caused all of Big Bear's dissatisfaction and grievances to be vented on him. Tiger King's skills were probably inferior to others. So, he could only suffer along the way. He felt that his mouth was about to hurt from grinning so much, and his cheeks were a little stiff. However, this 4th older brother still kept a straight face, and his stomach was full of unwillingness to give up. Tiger King Earthcracker would have been depressed by Bear Mountain if he hadn't been able to vent his anger on those thieves and robbers along the way. The 2 beast kings had been leisurely journeying along the way. They were getting closer and closer to Tianxiang. It could be said that they were having a great time fighting along the way. How could an ordinary thief be a match for these 2 supreme beast kings? Along the way, he was basically using these greedy people as practice targets. The Golden Tiger King, Earthcracker, had been very awe-inspiring along the way. In fact, he had even taken out a section of several hundred-years-old medicinal herb, and stuck it on his shoulder. Then, he revealed his head so that everyone could recognize him. In fact, he wanted to attract bees and butterflies. She even suggested excitedly, 4th brother, let's do this next time. We definitely don't need to fly. Damn it, if we fly there, how many less satisfying things will there be? But it's too satisfying. Bear Mountain rolled his eyes in a bad mood. Do you think it'll be your turn next time? I have nothing to say to you. I've already told you not to try to get close to me. I'm not familiar with you. Earthcracker smiled foolishly, and continued to blindly flatter him. The 2 of them continued to travel like this. Golden East City, Huang family. A purple-robed old man was sitting in the middle of the living room. He had white hair and gray eyebrows. His eyebrows were slanted upwards. He was motionless, but he still gave off an exceptionally fierce feeling. However, his cheeks were unusually rosy, smooth, and fair. This didn't match his white hair at all. In fact, he seemed to be in his 30s or 40s. In fact, he had a youthful look to him. His eyes were slightly narrowed, but they were flickering with a bright light. In fact, it seemed as if they were real. His figure was motionless, but his entire body exuded a kind of aura that was as vast as the mountains and seas. In fact, it was impossible to fathom. In fact, it seemed as if he had blended into the world even though he was just sitting there quietly. He seemed to have blended into the boundless universe. The unity of man and nature. This purple-robed old man had obviously reached a higher level than the great master level. There were 5 or 6 other purple-robed people beside him. They didn't look young either. Their hair was white, and they were sitting in their respective positions. At first glance, they seemed to be wearing the same clothes. However, one could see that the collar and cuffs of the old man's purple robe had shiny golden edges. But, the clothes of the other purple-robed people had silver edges. One gold and one silver. So, one could tell the difference in their status and rank. There was also a middle-aged man in his 30s or 40s. His cuffs were also embroidered with gold edges. He had a square face and thick eyebrows. However, he had a pair of slender eyes. He was the youngest among these purple-robed people. However, he was sitting side by side with the gold-edged purple-robed old man. In fact, it seemed as if they were neck and neck with each other. The 8 of them drank their tea in silence. They didn't make a sound for a long time. The servants of the Huang family were nowhere to be seen. Only a pretty maidservant in green was carefully pouring tea. The Huang family's master, Huang Jun, had a flattering smile on his face. He was carefully sitting on half a chair. On the other side was his younger brother, Huang Ri. His expression was even worse than his older brother's. His face was pale, and he seemed to be trembling with fear. However, there was an indescribable excitement in his eyes. "How is that matter?" the purple-robed old man asked after a long while. "He didn't seem to have a head or tail. The news has been spread out. I believe that the 3 great families should have received the news by now. However, with the old ancestor and all the seniors present, our Huang family will definitely have victory in our grasp. There's no room for error. The Jun family, Tang family, and the Dugu family may be the top families in the world. But, they are still people of the mortal world. They can't compare to the ancestor and the various seniors." Hee hee. Huang Jun bowed and replied respectfully. "This old man hasn't been in this world for 79 years. I didn't expect that this world would have such vicissitudes of life." The purple-robed old man snorted. He didn't even lift his eyelids as he continued in a gloomy manner, "My Huang family wasn't considered as one of those super families in the past. But, no one dared to provoke us because of this old man. But, you unfilial descendants have ruined the family's property to such an extent. It's very distressing. This old man would have slapped you brothers to death if you weren't the direct descendants of the Huang family. So, you wouldn't tarnish the Huang family's name." He suddenly opened his eyes, and looked at Huang Jun's face. "You're an especially unfilial brute. You've been humiliated by others. Yet, you've swallowed your anger, and compromised for the sake of the general interest. Your son has been killed. More than half of your family's property has been destroyed. And, you've gone to the Huang family's door to beg them to show mercy and let you go? What a big joke. Don't you know that fate is always controlled by one's own efforts? Luckily, this old man is the one who came. Otherwise, the Huang family's reputation would have been completely ruined by you unfilial descendants." Yes. Ancestor, please calm down. It's your great-grandson's incompetence that has tarnished the Huang family's name." Huang Jun's face was dripping with sweat as he knelt down. "Sigh, at least you have some sense of shame. Get up. What's the use of kneeling down so easily? Are you a kowtowing worm?" The purple-robed old man narrowed his eyes. "However, 3 mere worldly families want to humiliate the Huang family. They really don't know their place." Hee hee. They're courting death. If we don't let them remember this lesson forever, wouldn't we be letting them off too easily? May I ask what ancestor means? Huang Jun was a little uneasy. He was already over 50 years old, but in front of this ancestor, he couldn't help but feel like a 3-year-old child. Let's follow the previous conditions. However, I reckon that the 3 families won't accept such harsh conditions. Therefore, we have a lot of reasons to wipe them out as long as they declare that they won't accept. What can the 3 big families do? Humph. Humph. If they really annoy this old man, then it won't be difficult for me to wipe out the 3 big families. Yes. Huang Jun was secretly happy. This was what he was looking forward to. One must remove the roots when cutting weeds. His Huang family could run amok now that the ancestor was here. But, the ancestor would certainly have to go back. He didn't know when he would come out again. But, the Huang family would be finished if the 3 big families were still around, even if only one of them was still around. Therefore, the only way to solve this problem once and for all was to erase these 3 families from the face of the earth. Old Huang. I'm afraid that this matter needs to be considered. Our Lord only wants us to investigate the truth of the bone-tempering pills. And, the aristocratic hall that is auctioning the bone-tempering pills belongs to the Jun family and Tang Yuan. Moreover, the Dugu family and the Jun family are in-laws. So, if... A silver-threaded purple-robed man smiled. Of course. Everyone has come with the young lord. So, I won't act arbitrarily. That old Huang laughed sinisterly and said, "We'll naturally listen to the young lord's opinion on how we should proceed." Everyone's gazes turned towards the other purple-robed man. He was the youngest person in the group. That middle-aged man was the young lord of the illusory ocean of blood. No wonder he was on equal footing with the ochre-yellow old man at such a young age. That middle-aged man was at a loss at this moment. He thought, "Old Huang, you've expressed your attitude so clearly. So, how can I say that I don't agree? Wouldn't it be equivalent to slapping me in the face if I say that I don't agree? You, Old Huang, have a certain status in the illusory ocean of blood. It would be strange if you didn't flip out if I overruled you in front of so many people. But, what would happen to the bone-tempering pills if everything went according to your decision? Killing a few people from the secular world wouldn't be a big problem. But, the problem was that these people were related to the bone-tempering pills. The bone-tempering pills were related to the rankings of the illusory ocean of blood and the other 2 holy lands. As for the Tian Fa forest, it had already been filtered out by this young lord. He pondered for a while. Then, he said, "Old Huang's family is being bullied in such a manner. So, we obviously can't ignore it. Wouldn't that make people look down on our illusory ocean of blood? Vengeance must be taken. Anger must also be vented. Recommend a new book, Jade Fruit Brew's Ultimate God's Stone, book number 1714190. Slogan, by chance, Ding Quan discovered that the red stone his mother had left him could actually absorb the blood that flowed out of him. Furthermore, it could even evolve. What is the origin of this stone? Why is it in his mother's hands? What does all of this mean? You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.